Chapter 461. The Secret of the Domain, 5 Elements Cultivation, 5 Elements Body Refining Technique. Lu Qing sat cross-legged on the ground, quietly comprehending the domain sensation simulated by his superpower. The elder doctor and others were quietly watching him. They even stopped their idle chat to avoid disturbing his cultivation. Time silently passed, and at first, everyone didn't feel anything unusual. However, unconsciously, they suddenly felt a mysterious aura emanating from Lu Qing. It was as if the majesty of heaven had reappeared, suppressing everything. Seeing this, the elder doctor's face slightly changed, and he immediately said, "Everyone, step back for now. It seems Qing has realized something." The crowd hurriedly backed away. Actually, without the elder doctor saying, they already felt an uncomfortable sensation. The aura emerging from Lu Qing, although faint, made them feel inexplicably suffocated, as if not moving away quickly would lead to something terrifying happening. As the crowd retreated, Lu Qing, who was still immersed in cultivating, also noticed. Although he was receiving insights in his mind, he was not completely unaware of the outside world. After everyone moved to a safe distance, he then confidently immersed himself fully in the domain insights from his mind. This time, his master had demonstrated his understanding of domains entirely in the mini-sword energy domain he had shown on his palm. The superpower also didn't miss a thing, perfectly downloading and simulating it. This transformed into an understanding transferred to Lu Qing's mind, which made Lu Qing truly comprehend what a domain was. So that's it, a domain is essentially the control over the space around oneself. By integrating divine soul power with the surrounding heaven and earth, and mastering the primordial qi, one can transform it into a domain, evolve various techniques, and use them against enemies. Various realizations emerged in Lu Qing's mind. The application of a domain varies from person to person. Different insights can be transformed into different techniques. The third saint, with his divine melt heaven and earth, condensed the primordial qi of the 4 directions to form a great force and suppressed opponents with it, which was one way to utilize a domain. His master's precision sword energy domain was another kind of technique. Yet, the paths they took were not the same. Also, even within domains, there was a difference in strength. The strength of one's divine soul power, the extent of control over the primordial qi, and the height of one's realm all affected the power of one's personal domain. My master understood the Tao of water and fire, so his domain controlled the primordial qi of both water and fire elements. Water and fire support each other, making his domain significantly more powerful than ordinary ones. So, what primordial qi should I control? Lu Qing fell into deep thought. Typically, martial arts grandmasters, after breaking through to the innate realm, would choose to concentrate on comprehending one attribute of primordial qi and cultivate their own attribute true energy. Only a few, like his master due to coincidental chances, had grasped the notion of water-fire integration. Being able to cultivate true energy of 2 attributes not just without conflict but in mutual enhancement accelerated their cultivation pace. After stepping into the innate realm, Lu Qing hadn't had enough time to condense his own attribute true energy. Thus, he hesitated over how to choose. Or should he practice all 5 elements? This notion suddenly flashed through Lu Qing's mind. In fact, he had always had this idea. When his master first entered the innate realm and talked about the innate 5 elements qi in the human body, allowing one to choose which true energy to cultivate based on their preference, Lu Qing had asked whether it was possible to cultivate all 5 elements, simultaneously cultivating true energy of 5 attributes. His master had replied that theoretically, it was possible to cultivate all 5 elements, but human energy is limited, and cultivating 5 types of true energy simultaneously would undoubtedly slow the speed of cultivation. It was feared that before achieving significance, one would face the end of life. Thus, even if eventually cultivating 5 types of true energy, what would be the meaning? However, simultaneously comprehending the 5 elements was not a difficult task for Lu Qing. With his superpower, no matter what he learned, he could do so many times faster than ordinary people. Others worried about limited energy and didn't dare to comprehend multiple types of attribute true energy simultaneously, but he didn't have this concern. Therefore, cultivating all 5 elements was the best choice for Lu Qing. Deciding to do it, Lu Qing made up his mind and immediately began to concentrate, preparing to condense his own attribute true energy. Concentrating and calming his breathing, his divine soul power emerged from his brow's chakra, connecting with heaven and earth. Instantly, Lu Qing sensed the colorful 5 elements qi between heaven and earth, and the spiritual energy hidden in higher spatial layers, brimming with spiritual nature. Seeing this scene, Lu Qing had another thought. Nowadays, with the changes in heaven and earth, spiritual energy had already revived, and its richness was increasing day by day. In not too long a time, it might return to the state of the ancient immortal cultivation era. Then, the immortal cultivation method would surely rise again and shine brightly. The currently most prevalent martial arts would probably gradually wane. No, it should not be said to wane, but rather it would revert to its rightful place. In fact, Lu Qing guessed that today's martial arts probably originated from the body cultivation branch of the immortal cultivation path, because the two have too many similarities in their cultivation methods. Both involve absorbing and refining heaven and earth energy to temper oneself. However, martial artists absorb primordial qi, whereas body cultivation refines the higher-level spiritual energy. Since spiritual energy also has 5 elements, perhaps he needn't cultivate attribute true energy, and directly condensing spiritual power would be even better. Chapter 462. Just as I had refined the 9 strands of origin energy, my physical body reached the realm of shining with a treasure light, naturally making it suitable to pursue the path of body cultivation. At this thought, a change occurred in Lu Qing's mind. In his mind, numerous inheritances from the Li Hua sect flashed by. Eventually, his heart and spirit settled on a few cultivation techniques. These were among the best body cultivation techniques in the Li Hua sect's legacy. Their highest realm could cultivate to the Golden Core realm. Lu Qing selected for a while, and finally, his heart and spirit lingered on one particular technique. 5 elements body refining technique was the name of this technique. Coincidentally, this was also a method of 5 elements cultivation. Its core involved absorbing the spiritual energy of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, and cultivating the 5 elements' spiritual power to strengthen oneself. This was an extremely powerful body cultivation technique. It was said that the 5 elements body cultivated from it was extremely robust, even stronger than those at the same level of cultivation by more than just a notch. But likewise, this technique was famously slow in progressing realms. Even the powerful cultivator who created it only managed to cultivate to the Golden Core perfect realm before his time came, and he passed away with regret, unable to break through. After the fall of that cultivator, his method of body cultivation gradually spread out and was obtained by the sect forces of that time. However, due to its slow cultivation speed and not high upper limit, the major sects only treated it as a collectible, with few practicing it. The Li Hua sect, as a sect with a certain reputation in the cultivation world at that time, naturally had this technique. Having looked through the information of the 5 elements body refining technique, Lu Qing decided that this was the one. For no other reason than in the Li Hua sect's legacy, the best body cultivation methods were only at the Golden Core level. Since the upper limits were all the same, he naturally chose the most powerful one. As for the slow cultivation speed of the 5 elements body refining technique, he did not care about that. With superpower in his possession, he had enough confidence to control this technique. Lu Qing adjusted his heart and spirit to the best state, and started to comprehend the 5 elements body refining technique with the use of his superpower. A great deal of comprehension surged forth from the depths of his mind, and Lu Qing rapidly absorbed these insights. His understanding of the 5 elements body refining technique began to deepen continuously. The 5 elements body refining technique was divided into 3 chapters: Qi refining chapter, foundation establishment chapter, and Golden Core chapter. Each significant realm contained a vast amount of information. If it weren't for the fact that after entering the innate realm, His Divine Soul Talisman had ascended to the realm of the Yang Talisman, and his Divine Soul Power had undergone a transformation. He might not have been able to fully receive all these insights. Fortunately, now none of this was a problem for him. Lu Qing was immersed in countless cultivation insights. It was unclear how much time had passed when he absorbed the last bit of insight, and his heart and spirit suddenly shook, and a sense of enlightenment rose from his heart. He had basically comprehended the 5 elements body refining technique, especially the Qi refining chapter, which he had mastered thoroughly without any doubts or obstacles. With a thought, his divine soul power once again emerged from the brow chakra, sensing the heavens and earth. This time, he disregarded the colorful heaven and earth primordial Qi. He focused his heart and spirit on the more refined space filled with the aura of spiritual energy with spiritual nature. This was also the first time since stepping into the innate realm that Lu Qing had so seriously sensed spiritual energy. He then discovered that spiritual energy was full of spiritual nature, very lively. Although it existed in a higher level of space, it could easily be sensed by divine soul power. But to strip it from there and integrate it into oneself was quite difficult. One must have sufficiently strong power of the heart to do so. This was also the reason why, since the recovery of spiritual energy, very few people have managed to induce the energy into their bodies and refine spiritual energy. In today's world, except for those with other opportunities, the divine soul power of those in the innate realm was generally not that strong. Lu Qing tried to strip a strand of spiritual energy from the space. With the strength of his divine soul power at this time, this was naturally not difficult to do. Soon, he peeled off a strand of spiritual energy and guided it into his own Dan Tian Qi Si. Then he began to cultivate and refine it by operating the Qi refining method of the 5 elements body refining technique. With the mental method in motion, it wasn't long before Lu Qing successfully condensed his first strand of spiritual power. But this was only the first step. The one he refined this time was a strand of water attribute spiritual energy, and the spiritual power he condensed was also water attribute spiritual power. Yet, the 5 elements body refining technique required the simultaneous condensation of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth spiritual power, then through a profound mental method, to blend and integrate them together, to cultivate a unique and powerful 5 elements spiritual power. This is precisely the true reason why the cultivation of the 5 elements body refining technique is so slow. Others condense a portion of spiritual power, yet you must spend more than 5 times as long to condense the same. No wonder your progress is slow. This is also why, in the ancient cultivation world, few practiced the 5 elements body refining technique. Even if you possess great power, what of it? The path of cultivation seeks longevity. Strength is important, but not as much as lifespan. No matter how powerful you are, you can only be proud for a moment. In the face of time, eventually, you cannot escape turning into a handful of yellow soil. Only longevity is the ultimate pursuit of all cultivators. Moreover, the strength of a cultivator is not only displayed in spiritual power. Realm is equally a manifestation of strength. The 5 elements body refining technique, no matter how powerful, can only dominate within the golden core realm. Against cultivators stronger than the golden core, you would still be crushed. For various reasons, naturally even fewer people cultivate this technique with limited potential. Of course, these concerns are not something Lu Qing needs to consider right now. So, after condensing his first strand of spiritual power, he immediately began to sense again, peeling off another strand of spirit energy. This time, he chose a strand of wood attribute spiritual energy. And just as easily, he peeled it off and attempted to absorb it into the Dan Tian Qi Si. Perhaps it was because his body had accommodated and refined 9 strands of origin energy. When he absorbed the wood attribute spiritual energy into his Dan Tian, it did not conflict with the spiritual power he had just condensed. On the contrary, it was very docile, allowing him to refine it at will. While Lu Qing was condensing spiritual power, the elder doctor nearby sensed the aura emerging from him and became somewhat surprised. Is this the aura of spiritual power? Has Ah Qing become a Qi cultivator? But why are there two attributes of spiritual power within him? Could it be that he intends to cultivate spiritual power of multiple attributes at the same time? The elder doctor himself had condensed both water and fire spiritual power, but he never expected that Lu Qing would also choose this path. For a moment he grew worried. He was able to condense two kinds of spiritual power because he had comprehended the harmony between water and fire. Qing had not grasped a similar concept, and it was unknown whether he could handle the conflicts between multiple kinds of spiritual power. However, although he was concerned, the elder doctor did not interrupt him. He knew Lu Qing's character. His disciple would never do anything he was not confident about. Since he dared to condense multiple types of attribute spiritual power, he must have his own reliance. As the elder doctor worried, Lu Qing also successfully condensed the wood attribute spiritual power. Without hesitating, he continued to condense the third strand of spiritual power. In this way, as Lu Qing continued to condense, eventually, his dantian contained 5 different strands of spiritual power with distinct attributes. Looking at the 5 different attributes of spiritual power occupying 5 positions in the dantian qi si, Lu Qing steadied his mind. Next came the most crucial moment. He had to use the powerful power of the heart and the mental method to knead and merge these 5 strands of spiritual power to condense the true 5 elements spiritual power. This process was extremely dangerous. A slight misstep could cause a conflict between the 5 elements, potentially leading to a massive explosion. At that time, at the least, he would be grievously injured with a damaged qi si, and at worst, he might completely destroy his dantian qi si and become a cripple. However, having come this far, Lu Qing naturally would not back down. Moreover, he believed that, with his current foundation and control over himself, condensing the mere 5 elements spiritual power would not result in the slightest error. After psyching himself up, Lu Qing returned to a calm and untroubled state of mind. He began to use heart and spirit to drive the mental method, merging the 5 strands of spiritual power in the dantian. Under Lu Qing's powerful mental activation, the 5 strands of spiritual power began to converge at the center and merge with each other. Lu Qing watched this scene very closely, not daring to make the slightest mistake. However, to his surprise, the merging of the 5 strands of spiritual power turned out to be unexpectedly smooth. It took hardly any effort at all to merge. Soon, a new strand of spiritual power appeared within his dantian. Chapter 463 5 Elements Spiritual Power, Formidable Essence, Nourishing the Body. As the first strand of 5 elements spiritual power condensed, Lu Qing's heart and spirit were instantly captivated. The 5 elements spiritual power, which condensed from 5 different types of spiritual powers, wasn't the colorful spectacle he had anticipated. Instead, it was a dull gray, seemingly inconspicuous at first glance. But this strand of 5 elements spiritual power was filled with a mysterious aura, embodying the completeness of the 5 elements and exuding a sense of perfection. Merely coming into contact with it through his heart and spirit, he felt the powerful might it contained. It was much stronger than the other single-attribute spiritual powers he had previously condensed. Could it be so easy to condense the 5 elements spiritual power because of my body's special constitution? According to the description of the 5 elements body refining technique, the initial stage of cultivating this technique, especially the step of condensing the 5 elements spiritual power, was extremely difficult. Merging the inherently conflicting and different attributes of the 5 types of spiritual powers into one required utmost caution. The slightest carelessness could result in a chaos of spiritual powers, mutual conflict, the reversal of qi blood, and an explosive disaster in the dantian qi si. However, as Lu Qing was condensing the 5 elements spiritual power, he felt unusually at ease. The 5 different attribute spiritual powers almost offered no resistance to his refinement. He easily condensed the 5 elements spiritual power. Such an unexpected event naturally astonished Lu Qing. His first thought was of the 9 streams of origin energy that had fused with his body. Origin energy represented the primordial evolution of this world and held the unique qualities of evolving and encompassing everything. His body had refinement 9 streams of origin energy, thus naturally inheriting a trace of this characteristic. It was probably for this reason that the 5 types of attribute spiritual powers became extraordinarily docile, allowing him to refinement and merge them without any rejection. With this in mind, the 5 elements body refining technique really is the most suitable cultivation technique for me. Lu Qing felt delighted. The biggest drawback of the 5 elements body refining technique was its slow cultivation progress. Now that he had such a smooth process in condensing the 5 elements spiritual power, his cultivation speed could also be significantly hastened. At least, it wouldn't be slower than cultivating a single attribute cultivation technique. Once the 5 elements spiritual power took form, Lu Qing's Dantian Qi Si also underwent a transformation. The innate true qi with no attribute that he had previously cultivated and which had already been pushed to the edges, was even more suppressed by the 5 elements spiritual power at that moment, tightly squeezed together. Had it not been for the confinement of the Dantian Qi Si, it would have probably fled. At the same time, the 5 elements spiritual power also developed a hint of yearning, seemingly interested in that innate true qi. Want to devour this innate true qi? Lu Qing suddenly found it interesting. He knew this was not consciousness within the 5 elements spiritual power, but merely a phenomenon of energy devouring energy. He thought, since he had already condensed the 5 elements spiritual power, then the innate true qi without an attribute was naturally useless to him. Moreover, in cultivation, one must not be distracted by multiple paths. Having multiple dissimilar energies in the Dantian Qi Si could be beneficial only if one had reached an understanding of a special state like his master, who could harmonize them to enhance cultivation. Otherwise, even if there were no problems initially, over time it was still an obstacle to cultivation progress. Therefore, with a single thought, Lu Qing urged the innate true qi in his Dantian to surge toward the central 5 elements spiritual power. The 5 elements spiritual power did not hesitate and immediately produced a devouring force, continuously swallowing the incoming innate true qi. After all the innate true qi was devoured, Lu Qing's Dantian Qi Si became empty, leaving only a strand of 5 elements spiritual power floating within. And after devouring innate true qi that was relatively oceanic, the 5 elements spiritual power only grew slightly stronger, without much change. Seeing this, Lu Qing sighed. He had hoped that if it devoured so much innate true qi, the 5 elements spiritual power would have experienced noticeable growth. He may have then used the innate true qi to feed and rapidly increase the 5 elements spiritual power, since condensing innate true qi was extremely easy for him. Given the strength of his divine soul power, he could breathe in a vast amount of heaven and earth primordial power in an instant, refinement it, and condense true qi. Now it seemed, indeed, there were no shortcuts or opportune gains to be had. So much innate true qi had only strengthened the 5 elements spiritual power by a small fraction. With such low efficiency, it would be faster to sincerely practice the 5 elements body refining technique. The gap between true qi and spiritual power shouldn't be so vast. But the might of the 5 elements spiritual power far surpasses ordinary spiritual power. Aside from the extremely slow rate of cultivation, this technique is astonishingly powerful. No wonder many top-tier immortal sects from the ancient immortal cultivation era would keep it hidden. They, too, must recognize the uniqueness of this technique. However, those who joined the top-tier immortal sects were all prodigies of extraordinary talent and unparalleled cultivation potential. These exceptional geniuses held their sights high, usually aiming for the primordial spirit realm and above. Naturally, few would cultivate a slow-paced technique with a cap at the golden core realm. But for Lu Qing, who possessed a peculiar constitution, the 5 elements body refining technique was the most suitable technique. Let's test my cultivation speed. Lu Qing calmed his heart and spirit, began practicing according to the technique of the 5 elements body refining technique. As his thoughts moved, the surrounding spiritual energy was instantly stripped from the higher planes of space by his powerful divine soul power. Chapter 464. Absorbing it into his body, he entered the Dantian Qi Si for refinement and smelting. Soon, the second strand of 5 elements spiritual power appeared in the Dantian Qi Si, followed by the third strand, the fourth strand. While Lu Qing was wholly focused on his cultivation, the elder doctor's eyes gradually widened. Absorbing 5 types of attribute spiritual energy at the same time, what cultivation technique is Ah Ching practicing? In the elder doctor's senses, all around the area, the spiritual energy of the 5 attributes, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, were being indiscriminately absorbed into Lu Qing's body, and on his face, there wasn't even a hint of discomfort. On the contrary, he appeared calm and composed, his face emitting a treasure light. Clearly, his cultivation had not encountered any errors, and the current phenomenon was under his control. This couldn't help but shock the elder doctor. What kind of profound cultivation technique was Lu Qing practicing? Ma Gu and the others were still in the postnatal realm and could not sense the changes in spiritual energy. But they could feel that the aura emanating from Lu Qing was becoming more terrifying. In their vague perception, the overwhelming pressure made them feel terrified even just by watching from a distance. It's all right. Ah Ching must be practicing a very powerful cultivation technique. Don't stray too far from me. The elder doctor also sensed that the aura emanating from Lu Qing was shockingly strong. He immediately told Ma Gu and the others to stay close to him. That way, in case anything unexpected happened, he could still protect them. Fortunately, Lu Qing's cultivation remained stable. Although the energy he radiated was powerful, there was no sense of it being out of control. My cultivation speed is much faster than what's recorded in the 5 elements body refining technique. Lu Qing looked at the mass of 5 elements spiritual power inside the dantian, which resembled a chicken egg, and showed a satisfied smile. According to the description in the 5 elements body refining technique, initially it would take at least a month to refine such an amount of 5 elements spiritual power. But he managed to do it in less than an hour. His cultivation speed, compared not only to history's cultivators who practiced this technique but even to the powerful Golden Core realm creator of this technique, was much faster. This cultivation speed is already comparable to those famous prodigious cultivators recorded in the Li Hua sect's heritage. Lu Qing felt very satisfied. His decision to continuously suppress his realm and only break through once he reached central state had not been in vain. After surviving the tribulation, the benefits he gained were tremendously great. For his future cultivation, he had laid the most profound foundation. He even felt that, as he continued his cultivation, the benefits of his deep foundation would become increasingly significant. The condensation of 5 elements spiritual power stops here. Next, it's time for the real body refinement. The 5 elements body refining technique was a body cultivation technique. The method of body cultivation fundamentally involves using spiritual power to temper one's physical body, enhancing it. The difference lies only in the fact that each body cultivation practitioner has a different method to refine their physique. Those who cultivate fire element spiritual power often use methods involving fire. For instance, placing their bodies in magma to use the high temperature and their own spiritual power to forcefully refine impurities in their physical body. Those who cultivate water spiritual power favor methods involving water, such as diving into the deep sea, utilizing spiritual power to control the frigid undercurrents to temper their bodies. In short, every sect has a wide variety of peculiar methods and techniques. The 5 elements body refining technique naturally also has similar methods and even more extreme ones. However, these are only needed when Lu Qing's cultivation reaches a certain realm. At the entry level, there is no need for such extremities. Directly controlling 5 elements spiritual power to refine the physical body will suffice. Lu Qing concentrated and started to activate the 5 elements spiritual power, circulating it throughout his body to refine his physical form. The potency of the 5 elements spiritual power was no small matter. As the technique circulated, the spiritual power traveled through his body, and wherever it went, his physical body was gradually nourished and strengthened. The body refining method of the 5 elements body refining technique. The first step is nourishing. The 5 elements spiritual power contains the forces of the 5 elements, reflecting with the 5 elements of the human body. It can nourish the physical body, making it much stronger. This stage is about nourishing the body. However, relying on nourishment alone, The physical body cannot be enhanced significantly for long. It will soon reach its limit and cease to grow stronger. At the appointed time, if one wants one's physical body to continue to grow stronger, one must proceed to the second step of body cultivation, the breakthrough. With extreme power, shatter the limits, break the shackles, and only then can the physical body break through its limits and continue to grow stronger. These extreme body refinement techniques of various sects and factions are actually designed to force one's potential to break through the limits. However, with my current level of cultivation, there is still some distance from the limit of nourishing the body, so there is no hurry. Inside, he stimulated the 5 elements spiritual power circulating throughout his body, nourishing his physical body. Various cultivation intricacies of the 5 elements body refining technique also emerged in Lu Qing's mind. Brother's body is glowing. At this time, little Yen exclaimed softly, her eyes full of amazement. Others saw it as well. Lu Qing, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, now had his skin emitting a white halo. The halo was like mist, forming an aura around him, making Lu Qing look dignified and inviolable. It was unknown how much time had passed when Lu Qing felt the 5 elements spiritual power within his dantian was almost completely exhausted. He knew this session of cultivation had temporarily come to an end. He felt his body, the strong divine soul power, and precise control over himself. Realizing that this first body refining had made his physical body at least 10% stronger. Although the path of cultivation generally yields quicker results at the beginning, such a speed of body refining was still a delightful surprise for Lu Qing. After all, according to the records of the 5 elements body refining technique, normally, reaching this stage would take at least a month or 2. But he had managed it the first time he tried body refining. Gradually gathering his breath, Lu Qing opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the crowd that had drawn back far away. "Brother, you're awake." Seeing the halo recede from Lu Qing's body, little Yen immediately shouted excitedly, rushing towards him. The elder doctor also sensed that Lu Qing had finished his cultivation and did not stop her. Little Yen trotted all the way to Lu Qing, staring curiously at his face. "What? Is there something on my face?" Lu Qing was baffled by the little one's intense gaze. "Brother, little Yen just saw your body glowing. How did you do that?" Little Yen asked. "That was just a phenomenon of brother's cultivation. Nothing special." Lu Qing smiled. "Can little Yen be able to do that too when she becomes powerful?" The little one continued to ask. Although he didn't know why she was so insistent on this issue, Lu Qing still nodded affirmatively. "Of course, hasn't brother already said? If little Yen cultivates sincerely, even flying is possible, let alone emitting light. That is but a trivial matter." "Really? Then little Yen will have to practice more diligently in the future." The little one immediately lit up with excitement. Wei Zian, seeing this, immediately showed an envious expression on his face. Seeing his envious look, Lu Qing laughed again. "Ma Gu and Zian as well. Now you both have a thread of origin energy within you. Once you have fully absorbed it, your talents should undergo a transformation. Entering the innate realm in the future will surely not be a difficult task. When the time comes, I will teach you the qi eating skill, and the path of immortal cultivation won't be too far for you either." Hearing this, Wei Zian's spirit soared, and he immediately said, "Lu Qing, I will definitely not let you down." Even Ma Gu also looked resolute. He once thought that it would be a great blessing in his life to reach the inner organ realm. Now that Lu Qing gave him such a great opportunity, if he didn't grasp it well, he would truly be unappreciative. Only Hu Zizhi beside them had a slightly dejected look, but she quickly cheered up and showed no signs of oddity. "Ah Qing, you were contemplating the domain just now. How is your understanding coming along?" At this moment, the elder doctor spoke up. He did not ask what technique Lu Qing had cultivated before. Instead, he asked about his comprehension of the domain. Lu Qing, hearing this, smiled faintly and stretched out his palm. In the next moment, the elder doctor's eyes suddenly widened. Chapter 465, Immortal Cultivation, Return to Azure Dragon City. The elder doctor looked at Lu Qing's palm in shock. On the palm of his hand, there was a small domain the size of a chicken egg, slowly rotating. It was exactly like the technique he had shown Lu Qing. However, the difference was that his displayed domain was a sword energy domain, containing the power of water and fire, whereas the domain demonstrated by Lu Qing was a hazy one, containing only dense fog and appearing quite unimpressive. Yet the elder doctor could feel that the small domain in Lu Qing's hand exuded a sense of thickness and perfection, far from being as simple as it appeared. "Ah Qing, your domain, does it contain multiple types of spiritual power?" he asked. The elder doctor was tremendously shaken inside. Not only because Lu Qing had understood the control of domains in just a short while, almost matching him, but also because he intuitively sensed that Lu Qing's small domain was excessively mysterious. Even he couldn't see through its true nature for a moment. "Master, you indeed have a penetrating vision. True, my domain indeed contains various kinds of spiritual power including metal, wood, water, fire, and earth," Lu Qing said with a smile. "All 5 elements?" The elder doctor was tottering. "Then the spiritual energy of the 5 elements you just absorbed simultaneously. That is a new cultivation technique I have been practicing. A body cultivation method involving all 5 elements. After passing the heavenly tribulation, my physical body transformed, greatly enhancing my tolerance for spiritual power of various attributes. Practicing this technique yields twice the result with half the effort," Lu Qing explained. "A body cultivation method?" The elder doctor suddenly got interested. Yes, in the ancient immortal cultivation era, the way of immortal cultivation was divided into many schools. This method of body cultivation is one of them. If you are interested, Master, I will organize detailed information for you afterward. Good. The elder doctor nodded. He knew that Lu Qing had received a mysterious legacy and was very knowledgeable about the matter of the ancient immortal cultivation era. "Your domain contains only spiritual power without primordial qi? Have you converted all your internal power into spiritual power?" The elder doctor asked further. "The cultivation technique I practice is quite special. The spiritual power I condense is rather domineering, and true qi cannot coexist with it. It is easily devoured. Therefore, I plan to focus solely on cultivating a method that emphasizes on spiritual power," Lu Qing responded. The elder doctor understood. Indeed, spiritual power was significantly more formidable than true qi. As someone who cultivated both spiritual power and true qi, he could naturally feel the difference between the two. "Master, now that spiritual energy is recovering, it has become a major trend, with the power of spiritual energy far exceeding true qi, and its limit much higher. In the future, cultivation will definitely revert to a situation where immortal Tao is respected. You might also consider making an early decision," Lu Qing advised. The elder doctor fell into deep thought. Recently in his cultivation, he had encountered this problem as well. Spiritual power and true qi were 2 different kinds of forces. In terms of both power and spiritual nature, spiritual power was superior, and it nourished the body much more effectively. Although the cultivation of the qi-eating skill was harder than the innate method and progress was slower, compared to the benefits brought by spiritual power, these drawbacks were clearly negligible. Considering this, the elder doctor finally made a decision. "It's indeed better this way. Previously, I cultivated both spiritual power and true qi because when spiritual energy had just begun to recover, it was still sparse, making the condensation of spiritual power quite difficult. Now that spiritual energy is increasingly dense, it no longer hinders our cultivation, and it is time to focus solely on one path." "Then, Master, which branch would you like to cultivate?" "I will prepare a set of heritage for you," Lu Qing said with a smile upon seeing his master make a decision. "There's no hurry for that. I still know nothing about the way of immortal cultivation. Let me first understand the various cultivation branches you mentioned, then make a decision. For now, I will first convert all the true qi in my body into spiritual power. Then let me protect you, Master," Lu Qing offered. The elder doctor was a decisive person. Having made up his mind, He wasted no further time and immediately sat down cross-legged, began to practice. There were 4 types of energy in the Elder Doctor's Dantian Energy C. Water attribute spiritual power and fire attribute spiritual power, as well as water attribute true Qi and fire attribute true Qi. He had grasped the profound concepts of water and fire harmonizing, allowing him to perfectly control the power of water and fire. Thus, between the spiritual energies and the true Qi of water and fire, instead of conflicting, they fused and promoted each other, operating flawlessly. However, since spiritual power was considerably stronger than true Qi, a situation like the one Lu Qing had encountered earlier occurred in the Elder Doctor's Dantian. Water and fire spiritual power were centrally located while water and fire true Qi were squeezed to the peripheral area. The Elder Doctor had an intuition that even if he did not make a decision now, as his cultivation grew and water and fire spiritual power strengthened day by day, there would eventually be no place for true Qi in his Dantian. Rather than waiting for the 2 forces to conflict and harm him, it would be better to resolve this issue sooner. With concentrated and calm spirit, the Elder Doctor began to use his heart and spirit to urge the true Qi toward the central water and fire spiritual power. And the water and fire spiritual power, not at all hospitable, began to devour it. Because both originated from the same source, the Elder Doctor's cultivation, despite their different natures, the merging process was still very smooth. Before long, the water and fire spiritual power had completely devoured all the true Qi. When all the true Qi was consumed by the spiritual power, the Elder Doctor immediately felt an emptiness in his Dantian. A sense of relief spread throughout his body. The spiritual power in the Dantian operated without obstruction, flowing exceedingly smoothly. He instantly realized that his choice this time was correct. If he had delayed any longer, the issue of true Qi and spiritual power might have affected his cultivation. Chapter 466. Master's refinement speed is quite fast. Lu Qing had been closely monitoring his master's condition. Seeing him suddenly shiver slightly, a sense of ease and harmony rose from his body. He immediately knew that his master had refined and absorbed all the true Qi in his body. He thought for a moment, took out a jade scroll, and poured divine soul power into it for recording. Even Li Weitian, before his death, had managed to create an inheritance jade scroll. Now, the strength of Lu Qing's divine soul power was much stronger than Li Weitian's had been. Naturally, he could easily create an inheritance jade scroll. An hour later, the Elder Doctor woke up from his cultivation. His eyes sparkled, clearly in great spirits. A vague aura emerged from him, making him seem like an immortal, causing Ma Gu and others to stare in astonishment. By now, both master and disciple had transformed all the true Qi in their bodies, officially becoming true cultivators. At this time, Lu Qing had also finished recording the jade scroll. He handed it over. Master, I've recorded various sex information about the path of cultivation in it. When you have time, you can slowly go through it. The Elder Doctor nodded, took the jade scroll, and stowed it away. Now, they, being master and disciple, naturally didn't need to keep up formalities. After putting away the jade scroll, the Elder Doctor glanced at the sky and saw little Yen struggling to keep her eyes open. He immediately laughed and said, "All right, it's getting late. Everyone should rest for now. We can discuss anything else tomorrow." Hearing the Elder Doctor speak, everyone felt a wave of sleepiness. After all, they had traveled all day. The cultivation of Lu Qing and the Elder Doctor had also taken quite some time, and it was now past midnight. So, without much discussion, everyone went to their own spots to rest. The duty of staying awake was left to Lu Qing. Given his strong divine soul power, even several days without sleep would not affect him much. Staying awake for him was merely like meditating. In fact, throughout the night, he did not even let Ma Gu take over, and he kept watch till dawn. Not only that, but by the time everyone woke up in the morning, he had already prepared breakfast. "Brother Lu Qing, Elder Doctor, what should our next steps be? Should we directly head back to the village, or what?" Ma Gu asked as they ate breakfast. The previous day, they had hurried so much to shake off the spies from various forces in the holy city. Now, they were thousands of miles away from the holy city. It was not possible for those forces' spies to catch up to them anymore. Lu Qing pondered for a moment and said, "Let's head straight back to the village. We've been away for so long, we don't know the situation there. It's better to check as soon as possible." Lu Qing thought of the patient bitten by a snake he had encountered in Yunlai town on the way here. The poison in that patient was strange and unusually vicious, caused by evil qi, and the snake that had bitten him was typically non-venomous. This indicated that with the changes in the environment, not only had the spiritual energy recovered, but various evil and poisonous energies had revived as well. With Jili village backed by the 10,000 Great Mountains, he was unsure of the situation in the mountains and whether similar mutated poisonous creatures had appeared. Worried, he naturally wanted to return sooner. The elder doctor also considered this and similarly nodded. "Ah Qing is right. We've been away from the village for so long. It's time to head back early." "Okay, we'll continue on our way soon," Ma Gu responded immediately. "Sister Hu, we should reach Azure Dragon City in no more than 2 days. Then you can reunite with your father," Lu Qing said to Hu Zheji. Hu Zheji replied, her eyes showing a hint of longing. Although she hadn't been away from home for very long, not even a month in total, the many events that had occurred during this period were overwhelming. She had even nearly lost her life several times, which made her miss her father intensely, the warm figure who had protected her with a smile for over a decade. In the next 2 days, Lu Qing and the others continued their journey. Under the extreme speed of the array formation car, indeed, on the morning of the 3rd day, they arrived in front of Azure Dragon Pass. "Brother Lu Qing, Elder Doctor, I just went to ask, and today is the day Azure Dragon City opens its gates." In front of first-tier Sky Canyon, many people had gathered, and Ma Gu, who had just returned from making inquiries, said with a happy expression, "It seems we are in luck." Lu Qing smiled. Hu Zheji, however, stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down with a complex gaze. The bodies of the 3 red-clothed women who had initially been meant to escort her, but had later turned to conspire against her, had been thrown down this cliff by Ma Gu. That day had been Hu Zheji's first experience of the dangers of the world, which were far beyond her imagination. Now, returning here, her thoughts were still complex. "Sister Hu, we are about to leave." Hu Zheji, lost in thought while looking down at the mist below the cliff, heard little Yan's voice. It brought her immediately back to reality, and after one last deep look at the cliff, she turned and ran toward the others. Coming. Returning to Azure Dragon One-Line Sky Canyon, the feelings of Lu Qing and the others remained the same. The mysterious valley held the same unique pressure as when they had first visited. It was still as imposing and solemn, demanding utmost respect. Even though Lu Qing's cultivation had greatly advanced, making him a true cultivator, he still felt an inner oppression. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the force that had created this massive rift had been. After exiting the first-tier Sky Canyon, they stepped onto the massive Azure Dragon Bridge. Revisiting the old place, the scenery was still grand, but it no longer held the shock and awe of their first encounter. Lu Qing and the others crossed the bridge and arrived at the vast platform in front of Azure Dragon City. The platform was already crowded with merchants and travelers waiting, but it was not yet time to open the gates, so they had to wait. The spiritual energy of Azure Dragon City has grown much denser than when we left, almost catching up with Central State, Lu Qing observed, sensing that the density of spiritual energy here had increased. By this estimate, the spiritual energy outside in the various states must have also become denser. This gave him some reassurance. Since the richness of the spiritual energy was spreading from Central State to all parts of the world, Jili village, being remote, probably wouldn't have changed much. Relaxed at heart, he began to survey the surroundings. At that moment, a conversation nearby caught his attention. "Have you heard? I heard that something big has happened in the holy city," someone suddenly said. "Brother Zhao, you're so impressive. Doing business all the way to the holy city?" Another person exclaimed. "I don't have the capability for that. I heard about it from a disciple within my sect." Apparently, a few days ago, an extraordinary phenomenon appeared in the Holy City, bringing countless opportunities. It led to a brutal struggle among the martial artists there. Even several from the innate realm died. The first voice continued. So many from the innate realm died. What kind of opportunity could be so extraordinary? The crowd gasped. I'm not sure about that, but I heard that on the day of the opportunity, not only did a cloud vortex that blocked out the sun appear, but there were also ubiquitous thunder and lightning, and continuous extraordinary phenomena. Such phenomena indicate the opportunity must be extraordinary. No wonder the martial artists fought so fiercely over it, the crowd remarked. Not just extraordinary phenomena in the Holy City. I also heard that in the north of Central State, a white wolf appeared, one zhang tall and unusually mighty. It could not only lead packs of wolves but was also immensely powerful itself. I heard that the martial artists from Guiyuan sect sent many experts, but none could subdue it. Instead, many were injured. Now, that white wolf has vanished into the deep mountains and can no longer be found. Someone else added. A zhang-tall white wolf, could it not swallow a person whole? Someone asked, shocked. The white wolf is nothing. I heard that in the south there even appeared a white elephant that's even more terrifying. With a casual flick of its trunk, it could smash stones as large as small mountains. Hearing this, Lu Qing's heart stirred, and he looked in the direction of the conversation. Chapter 467. Lu Qing looked over and found that not far away, a group of people had gathered to chat idly. Their attire suggested they were all traveling merchants. He was surprised that news from the Holy City had spread so quickly across Central State. But then he thought of the jade token Lin Jirue gave to Master and felt he understood. With the recovery of spiritual energy, many cultivation methods had begun to slowly reveal themselves. Transmission items like communication jade tokens were likely kept in the storage of many major sects. Even if not, there were always some peculiar flying creatures with incredible speed that could swiftly deliver messages. The white vortex atop Holy Mountain that day was simply too vast and shocking. It was normal for such news to spread across the entire Central State in such a short time. He thought for a moment and then walked over. Gentlemen, this young one offers his greetings. The group of people, in the midst of a lively conversation, suddenly heard a voice as smooth as pearls and jade, causing them to pause and then turn their heads. Upon seeing Lu Qing, they were all taken aback. At that moment, Lu Qing, having survived the heavenly tribulation and stepped into the innate realm and practiced body cultivation, had become a true cultivator. Though he had retracted all his aura, the transcendent quality inherent to a cultivator was still inescapably evident. This immediately caused a profound stirring in the hearts and spirits of the crowd of merchants. Seeing the extraordinary Lu Qing, everyone immediately understood that his identity must be far from ordinary. He was either a direct descendant of a major family or a disciple of a sect. They dared not neglect him and hurriedly returned the greeting. Not at all, young master, we offer our greetings. Gentlemen, I overheard you discussing the phenomenon in the Holy City and the matter of the white wolf and white elephant, which I find quite interesting. May I be so bold as to ask for more details? Lu Qing asked politely. Of course, young master, please take a seat. Someone immediately offered their stool and invited Lu Qing to sit down. Lu Qing didn't decline and took a seat. May I ask what matters the young master would like to inquire about? Someone asked. Regarding the matters of the Holy City, I too had heard some things on my way over. But the story of the white wolf and white elephant mentioned by these two gentlemen earlier is new to me. Could the gentleman please enlighten me further? Ah, so the young master is interested in the matter of the mutant beasts. Indeed, I have always been interested in the strange and supernatural occurrences of the world. Speaking of the white wolf, now that is a formidable creature. The merchant, naturally talkative and fond of showing off, now found a distinguished young man inquiring of him. His vanity swelled, and he began to speak animatedly. Some days ago, it is said that a white wolf appeared in the north of Central State. This wolf was 10 feet tall, completely white, devoid of any stray hair. Not only did it move as fast as the wind, but it also commanded a pack of wolves with military precision. A few days ago, the White Wolf led its pack to attack a small city in the north. That city was under the jurisdiction of the Guiyuan sect, which then dispatched many elders and elite disciples to exterminate it. But not only were they unable to capture the White Wolf, they were injured by it and allowed the wolf to escape with ease. Despite having heard a brief account earlier, the crowd was still shocked when they heard the details. As for the white elephant, that was something I heard about in a small town to the south. Another merchant who had been to the south began to share his story. The townsfolk there said that recently, a white giant elephant appeared in the mountains. This white elephant was immensely large, almost half the height of a small mountain. Someone claimed to have seen it use its long trunk to easily shatter boulders as large as small mountains. Fortunately, the white elephant was not aggressive and had no intent to harm, which allowed the townsfolk to escape disaster. A white elephant half the height of a small mountain. How tall must that be? The crowd was shocked once again, finding it hard to imagine the true scale of the white elephant. Lu Qing fell into thought. If what the two men said was true, it meant that the changes occurring in the world since the spiritual energy recovery were even more intense than he had imagined. The white wolf and the white elephant spoken of by the merchants were clearly mutant beasts born from the changes in the world. It was uncertain whether they were spiritual beasts born naturally like Little Li or had undergone some fortuitous transformation. Thinking this, Lu Qing smiled and said, "Thank you both for the insightful stories. By the way, I noticed this gentleman's legs seemed to be troubling him." Lu Qing referred to the merchant who had spoken of the white elephant. He was a middle-aged man with graying temples who first appeared startled, then showed a look of surprise. How did the young master discern this? Indeed, some days ago, I was hurrying through the wilderness when suddenly a heavy rain began, which did not stop for several days. In my anxiety, I braved the rain and traveled for 2 days. Since then, I've been having issues with my legs. At night, they pain me terribly, but the pain lessens significantly during the day. I have consulted physicians to no avail. Thankfully, I can manage to walk during the day. Otherwise, I fear I would have to give up my livelihood. You see, when you were caught in the rain that day, a cold evil entered your body and lodged in your feet, unable to be dispersed. It is during the night, when the chill is heavier, that it resonates with the cold evil inside you, intensifying the malicious cold energy. Lu Qing explained carefully. At the same time, he figured that the heavy rain the man mentioned was probably the same cold evil rain they encountered just after leaving Jili village. Chapter 468. Young Master is versed in medical skills? The merchant's eyes lit up immediately upon hearing Lu Qing speak so authoritatively. I have a certain understanding. If uncle does not mind, would you let me treat you? It would be in return for the guidance you gave me just now, said Lu Qing with a smile. Very well, please proceed with the treatment. Even if you make it worse, I won't blame you, the merchant hastened to say. It won't come to that. Although my skills are not perfect, I have never made anyone's condition worse. Lu Qing smiled, took a needle bag out of his bosom. Uncle, please take off your shoes and roll up your trouser legs. The merchant hurriedly took off his socks and shoes and rolled up his trouser legs. Everyone gasped upon seeing his legs. The merchant's legs below the knees were already a dark shade of blue-black. Above the knees, there was also a faint blue-black hue, looking quite frightening. Even Lu Qing was slightly taken aback. It wasn't so much the blue-black appearance that shocked him, but rather he was amazed that the cold evil energy was so severe. An ordinary person would probably have been unable to walk by now. But this merchant was simply showing a bit of discomfort. It must be understood he was just an ordinary person, only a bit more physically robust, not even a martial artist yet. This willpower even impressed Lu Qing. Uncle, I will use acupuncture to force out this cold evil energy. There might be some discomfort, so please try to bear with it. It's fine. Young master, just treat me. How could the pain be worse than what I endure at night? As long as you don't chop off my leg, you may proceed as you wish, the merchant said nonchalantly. Everyone listening was taken aback. who knew how much pain he'd been enduring to say such a thing. Lu Qing nodded, took several silver needles from the needle bag. One by one, he inserted them into the merchant's legs. His speed of inserting the needles wasn't fast, but his movements were as fluid and natural as flowing water. Even those who knew nothing of medical skills could discern his profound expertise in acupuncture. The merchant was even more certain. He had braced himself for discomfort when Lu Qing said he would insert the needles, ready to grit his teeth and not cry out in pain, no matter how painful it would be later. But as he watched the silver needles penetrate his legs, aside from an initial sting, he felt nothing else. And that sting was trivial compared to the torment he had endured these past days, hardly worth mentioning. Lu Qing's needle insertion was not fast, but it was extremely precise. Before long, he had inserted 18 silver needles into each of the merchant's legs. After all the silver needles were in, Lu Qing flicked his wrist ever so slightly, a trace of spiritual power seeping out to influence the needles. Instantly, the 36 silver needles on the merchant's legs began to hum, trembling in unison and emitting a radiant silver glow. This startled the merchant, his eyes widening. His legs felt sour, numb, and swollen as if countless warm currents were swirling within. It was extremely uncomfortable. Had he not bitten down on his teeth in time, he probably would have cried out in pain. To the others, it was a different scene entirely. Beneath the shimmering silver light, they saw the blue-black color on the merchant's legs being forced down bit by bit. At last, it gathered into two black bulges the size of copper beans on both big toes. As the bulges formed, Lu Qing quickly produced another silver needle, stabbing swiftly at them. With two hissing sounds, two streams of black blood spurted out, landing on the ground and releasing a blue-black vapor, dissipating in the sunlight. As the black blood shot out, the merchant who had been enduring with clenched teeth suddenly relaxed his face, showing an expression of relief without a trace of pain. Seeing there was no more blue-blackness on the merchant's legs, Lu Qing began to remove the needles. His speed of removing needles was much faster than when inserting them. In the blink of an eye, all the silver needles were back in the bag. "Uncle, please try to stand up and walk around to see if everything is all right." The merchant did not hesitate and immediately stood up, walking barefoot on the ground. He quickly showed a look of surprise and delight on his face. His legs felt incredibly comfortable, with just a slight stinging pain in both his injured thumbs, without any other discomfort. Compared to just moments before, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Without caring for anything else, he immediately threw himself to his knees and started kowtowing to Lu Qing. "Thank you, young master, for saving my life." Lu Qing jumped in surprise and quickly helped him up. "Uncle, you're too kind. It was just a treatment for your legs. Such a grand gesture is unnecessary." With Lu Qing's cultivation, the merchant naturally could not resist his strength and was gently helped to his feet. However, the gratitude on his face did not diminish. Instead, with tears in his eyes, he began to share his suffering with Lu Qing. "Young master, you do not know, ever since I got this leg pain, these days have been torturous for me. As night falls, my legs start to hurt, and as the hours pass, the pain slowly intensifies. By midnight, it's so painful that I feel like my teeth are going to shatter. Plainly speaking, sometimes when it hurts, I really want to just take a knife and chop off my own leg. During this time, I've consulted many doctors, yet not a single one could cure my legs. Some even said that my condition is so strange, perhaps only martial artists of the innate realm might have a way to treat it. But I am just a mere ordinary merchant. What merit or ability do I have to get those high and mighty innate realm individuals to treat my legs?" Thus, these days I had already given up. I was waiting to return home and make arrangements for my affairs and find a place to end it all, to spare myself the agony of dying from the pain someday. Listening to the merchant's lament, everyone felt a mix of sadness and alarm. They hadn't expected the supposed cold, evil energy to be so terrifying. To see a man of such resolute character being tortured to the point of considering suicide It was truly hard to imagine how horrific the pain must be. That's why I say, young master, you've truly saved my life. The merchant said this and again attempted to kowtow to Lu Qing. This time, Lu Qing was prepared and would not let him kneel again. Gently stopping him, he said, I'm just fulfilling the duty of a doctor, uncle. There's no need for such formalities. Seeing he could not kneel, the merchant also realized that Lu Qing was no ordinary person, but a powerful martial artist. He immediately reached for his money pouch. Right, young master. I want to give you the payment for the consultation. No need, uncle. Lu Qing once again smiled and shook his head. Consider that in return for the information you just gave me about the white elephant. Life on the road is not easy for anyone. Besides, I didn't use any medicine stones, so there's no need for a consultation fee. By the way, the city gates are about to open, and my companions are waiting for me. I need to go. Having said this, he did not give the merchant another chance, and with a slight movement, he was already out of the crowd's encirclement, heading towards the carriage. Everyone admired his graceful movement technique and looked on with respect for the mysterious young man who had suddenly appeared. Brother, were you treating that uncle's illness just now? Little Yen asked sweetly as Lu Qing returned. They had all seen Lu Qing administering the silver needles earlier. Yes, I went to inquire about some things, and when I saw that uncle's legs seemed a bit inconvenient, I took the opportunity to treat him. Lu Qing nodded. Hu Zheji's eyes flashed with admiration. In her eyes, Lu Qing was always so willing to help others. His character so noble, that she found it difficult to look up to him. The elder doctor showed a look of approval. Lu Qing had not forgotten the heart of a doctor, and that pleased him the most. By the way, master, you must have heard about what those two merchants mentioned earlier, didn't you? Lu Qing said. The elder doctor's expression also turned serious, and he nodded. Yes, I heard. I didn't expect there would be so many mutant beasts out there. Chapter 469. Entering the city, an unexpected event. I didn't expect such powerful mutant beasts to appear outside. It seems the changes in the world since the spiritual energy recovery have been faster than we expected. The elder doctor said with a somewhat grave expression. Indeed, and according to what those two uncles said just now, those two mutant beasts both appeared to be quite spiritually aware. Their intelligence is not inferior to that of ordinary people, Lu Qing said. It's unknown how many such mutant beasts have appeared in the world and how many are benign, the elder doctor said with some concern. He had also heard about the matter of the white wolf mentioned by the merchant traveler earlier. Commanding a pack of wolves to attack cities, it was clear that the white wolf was not friendly towards humanity. If these newly emerged sentient mutant beasts all bore hostility towards humanity, then I fear that the days ahead for the people of the world will become difficult. The trend is as such, and the powers of the world are bound to change. During the ancient immortal cultivation era, it wasn't just our human race that was revered. There were other clans in existence. Therefore, master, this is the trend of the times, we need not worry too much. Lu Qing comforted his master upon seeing his worry. I know. The elder doctor nodded. He had read the Jade Scroll recorded by Lu Qing in the past 2 days, and he knew quite a bit about many things from the ancient immortal cultivation era. He understood that under the spiritual energy recovery, the awakening of mutant beasts and the revival of various clans are also the trend of the times, the direction of the heavenly Tao. The city gates are about to open. Just then, someone shouted out loud. Above the city gate, someone was seen waving a yellow flag. That was the signal that the city gates were about to open, and the waiting crowd and caravans outside began to stir, starting to line up. Lu Qing and the others, leading the horse cart, lined up behind a caravan. Just as the people outside had formed their line, a commotion sounded from the city gates. The two huge city doors began slowly to open to both sides. Sister Hu, you're about to be able to return home, little Yen said to Hu Ziji happily. Hu Ziji nodded slightly. Yet, her expression was somewhat complex, both happy and apprehensive. With a great noise, as everyone waited, the city gates fully opened. First, many merchants and pedestrians surged out from the city, And then it was the turn of people like Lu Qing, who were waiting outside to enter the city. Naturally, there was also a fee for entering the city, and Ma Gu went to pay with a purse in hand. The one collecting the entry fees was still the same tall, imposing man from last time. With the experience from last time, Ma Gu did not try to be clever and stuff extra money into the purse this time. He honestly offered up the silver according to the actual cost per person to enter the city. The powerful-looking Han accepted the silver with a usual expression, recording it in the accounts. But when he raised his head to look at Ma Gu again, he let out a slight gasp. "I recognize you. It seems it was only last month that you entered the city, right?" Ma Gu was momentarily startled, then quickly displayed a flattering smile and said, "My lord indeed has a good memory. It's true. We only entered the city last month." The imposing Han looked up at the others behind Ma Gu, and when he saw Lu Qing, he was momentarily surprised. However, he quickly suppressed this moment of surprise and his face returned to a calm smile. "Then you've returned quite quickly. Did you enjoy your visit to Central State?" "Thanks to your blessing, Lord. It was a smooth journey, and we saw many splendid sights that truly broadened our horizons." "That's good. Okay then, there's no issue with the entry fee, you may enter." Watching the backs of Lu Qing and others as they entered the city, the imposing Han's smile slowly faded and grew stern. He took out a painting scroll from the drawer under the table and gently opened it. On the scroll was the image of a young man holding a war saber, looking spirited, whose face was extremely similar to that of Lu Qing. After seeing the person in the painting, the great Han couldn't help but draw in a breath of cold air. "It really is him, but didn't we receive news that he only left the holy city 3 days ago? How could he have returned so quickly?" Remembering the instructions from the city lord a couple of days ago, the great Han didn't dare to delay. He called over his deputy to take over the collection of city entry fees. He then took the scroll and left in a hurry. "Mr. Lu, did that city guard recognize you just now?" Hu Ziji asked as they walked along the street. "Oh, what makes you say that?" Lu Qing raised an eyebrow. "I noticed that the city guard's expression changed when he saw you. He seemed quite shocked." "He must know who you are," Hu Ziji said with certainty. Lu Qing was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected Hu Ziji to notice that detail. He said nonchalantly, "Maybe, but it doesn't concern us. No need to mind it." "Oh." Seeing that Lu Qing and the elder doctor did not appear concerned, Hu Ziji also let the matter go. Lu Qing smiled. Of course, he had noticed the great Han's unusual behavior. The man's gaze clearly showed he knew who Lu Qing was. But since Azure Dragon City was one of the defenses for Central State and must be closely connected to the Holy City, having special means of communication was not surprising. That they would know his appearance was also to be expected. After all, after that battle in the Holy City, his information must have already spread among the major sect forces. As long as they did not bother him, Lu Qing didn't mind. "Mr. Lu, where do you plan to stay tonight? I've grown up in this city since I was young and am very familiar with it. I can take you," Hu Ziji offered. "It's still early. We won't be staying in the city tonight. After we drop you off at home, we'll be setting off." Lu Qing replied with a smile. Chapter 470. "You're leaving so soon?" Hu Ziji's body shook, and she looked at Lu Qing with some bewilderment. That morning, she had not heard anything about this moment from Lu Qing. "Indeed, we have been away from home for a long time on this trip, and we don't know how things are at home. We would like to return quickly." Hu Ziji did not fully catch what Lu Qing said next, her mind in total disarray as she stood there dumbly. "Miss Hu." Knowing that something was off with her, Lu Qing gently called out to her several times before Hu Ziji came back to her senses. "Oh, nothing, what is it?" Hu Ziji asked somewhat vacantly. "Miss Hu, there are 2 paths ahead. Which one leads to your home?" Take the left." Hu Ziji, a bit flustered, discerned the direction before pointing it out, and in an attempt to mask the turmoil within her, she rushed ahead. Watching Hu Ziji's agitated pace, Lu Qing shook his head without saying much, just following behind. As for the elder doctor, He simply smiled at such youthful emotions, neither approving nor disapproving. Huzaji's heart was in chaos, but this tumult slowly dissipated as they approached her home. What remained was the excitement and nervousness of returning home. Finally, upon seeing that all-too-familiar doorway, her emotions peaked. No longer able to contain herself, she ran forward. The gate to her family's yard was open, which Huzaji found strange. But she did not have the time to ponder these thoughts. Overjoyed, she ran in, crying out, "Dad, I'm back!" But in the next moment, her eyes widened in shock. "Who are you people? Let go of my dad!" Huzaji's eyes flashed with alarm. Inside the courtyard stood a gang of fierce and brutish men, and her father Hu Laosan was bleeding from his chest. Pinned to the ground by a richly dressed, gentle-looking young man, he was unable to move. "Xiao Lian, you're back, are you all right?" The moment Hu Laosan saw Huzaji, his eyes showed an unbelieving joy. But quickly, his joy turned to urgency, and he shouted, "Run quickly! They are all bad people." But it was already too late. Upon seeing Huzaji, the young man's face showed delight. Without his command, two men leaped out from behind him, reaching for Huzaji. "How dare you!" Seeing his daughter about to fall into evil clutches, Hu Laosan's eyes turned blood red with rage and struggled fiercely. But already severely injured, and with the gentle-looking young man's cultivation far surpassing his, Hu Laosan's efforts were fruitless. With just a little force from the young man's foot, Hu Laosan spat out blood, his breath growing weak, unable to struggle any further. The gentle-looking young man's gaze remained fixed on Huzaji. As he saw his slaves about to capture her, a smile crept onto his face. But the next moment, that smile froze on his face. He saw that his two superbly skilled slaves, whose cultivation had reached the muscle-bone realm, were about to touch Huzaji when a black rod poked out from behind and jabbed them in the chest. Boom! Boom! A powerful force burst forth, and the two slaves spat out blood, flew backward, and landed in the yard, knocking over various objects. By the time they stopped, they had passed out. What? This sudden turn of events astounded everyone in the courtyard. The gentle-looking young man narrowed his eyes, looking toward the iron rod that had emerged from behind Huzaji. No, more precisely, at the owner of the rod, Wei Zian. "Who are you to interfere with the affairs of the Qi family?" the young man asked Wei Zian coldly. However, Wei Zian did not pay him any attention but instead turned to Huzaji, asking with concern, "Sister Hu, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Huzaji shook her head, her face anxious. "But they've captured my father. How dare you ignore me?" Seeing Wei Zian talking to Huzaji as if he were not present, utterly disregarding him, the young man's face grew even colder. His finger twitched slightly, and the next moment, two more figures burst out from behind him. This time, the two that charged out were much stronger than the previous two. The explosive force of their qi blood made even the air in the courtyard seem to become dry and scorching hot. They turned out to be two martial arts masters with immense qi blood power, who had both reached the internal organ realm. Facing the two martial arts masters lunging at him, Wei Zian stood unafraid. He didn't even move an inch, simply holding his staff with both hands, his face showing a mocking expression as he watched the scene unfold. Does this kid have a death wish? Just as a strange thought sprouted in the mind of the youth with a gentle face, the next moment, a shocking scene occurred. A figure had, at some unknown time, appeared beside Wei Zian. Then, a flash of sword light lit up. The two internal organ realm guards he had brought with him did not even have time to react before they were struck by the sword light and sent flying backward. Thud! Thud! By the time the two internal organ realm guards had barely managed to stabilize themselves and land on the ground, they found two deep, bone-revealing saber cuts on their chests. Seeing the terrifying wounds on their chests, the two guards' eyes showed horror, and a deep chill arose in their hearts. They looked at Ma Gu with extreme wariness. If they hadn't been wearing armor, they might have already been sliced in half by the opponent. Where did this master of sword skill come from? His saber technique was so strange they couldn't block it in the slightest. "Who are you, sir?" This time, even the youth with the gentle face could no longer maintain his composure. In one move, he had gravely wounded his own residence's 2 internal organ realm guards. Ma Gu's strength was at least that of a master with great success in the internal organ realm or above. Such a powerhouse, even throughout Azure Dragon City, could be considered a master. He was no longer someone the youth could look down upon. However, what turned the gentle-looking youth's face an ashen color was that Ma Gu likewise did not answer his question. Instead, he looked down at the third brother at his feet and said indifferently, "Let him go." "Good, very good." Facing Ma Gu's attitude, the youth with the gentle face laughed furiously. He was only ever the one commanding others. When had anyone dared to speak to him with such a tone? In his sudden rage, he didn't think before his chi blood surged under his feet, and he attempted to crush Hu's chest with a stomp. However, just as he was about to exert force with his foot, he felt emptiness beneath him. The next moment, an unbearable, intense pain struck him, causing him to involuntarily cry out in agony and tumble to the ground. And it was then that he saw his lower leg had already been severed and lay apart from him. "My leg, my leg!" The gentle-faced youth couldn't believe his eyes as he stared at his severed limb and screamed in madness. "Young master! Young master!" The house slaves who had been standing by until now were also in disarray. Some wanted to help the gentle-faced youth stop the bleeding, and some tried to shield him to prevent further injury. "Kill them! Kill them all for me!" Amidst the excruciating pain, having also lost a leg, the gentle-faced youth's rationale had completely vanished. His voice shrill and hysterical as screams echoed. However, after witnessing Ma Gu's saber technique, the remaining guards dared not approach. They merely stood in front, hesitating and scared to move. Seeing this, the gentle-faced youth grew even more frantic. "Go at once, if you don't, I'll have my father slaughter your entire family." Upon hearing this, the faces of all the house slave guards changed drastically. No longer caring about their fear, they gritted their teeth, their eyes red as they prepared to charge at Ma Gu and Wei Zian. Even the 2 guards who had already suffered severe injuries clenched their jaws, drew their weapons and rushed forward. However, at that moment, an invisible pressure suddenly descended upon the courtyard. All the house slave guards were immediately suppressed on the spot, unable to move an inch. Even the expressions on their faces congealed, uncontrollable. Innate pressure. Which innate realm expert dares to act within the city? The moment this pressure appeared, in a nearby luxurious house, a figure who had been meditating suddenly became alarmed. Chapter 471. Qi Family's Innate. Azure Dragon City Lord's Prayer. Innate realm expert? In the courtyard, all the house slaves and guards were suppressed on the spot, unable to move. They all looked at the figure of the young man who was slowly walking in, utterly shocked. Feeling the terrifying pressure emanating from him, they were tremendously astounded. As residents of Azure Dragon City, even the house slaves were quite knowledgeable. They naturally recognized that what the young man was using was the legendary innate pressure. But precisely for this reason, their hearts were filled with even more fear. An innate realm expert so young must have an extraordinarily astonishing background. Innate realm. The soft-featured youth had also forgotten the pain in his body at that moment. He looked at Lu Qing with astonishment, unable to believe there could be such a young innate realm expert, while also feeling intimidated by the terrible pressure exuding from him. Because he felt that the aura revealed by the young man before him seemed even more terrifying than that of a few guest elders of the innate realm from the Qi Mansion. "Dad, how are you?" Seeing Lu Qing had subdued those villains, Hu Ziji quickly ran up and helped Uncle Hu up. At this moment, Uncle Hu's mind was completely blank. Merely being helped up absent-minded, he couldn't even speak. This really frightened Hu Ziji. "Dad, are you injured somewhere?" With his daughter's call, Uncle Hu finally came to his senses. He hastily said, I'm fine. It's just some minor injuries. Nothing serious." Xiao Lian, Who are these people? Uncle Hu, we just met at the city gate a few days ago. Have you forgotten so quickly? Lu Qing smiled. Uncle Hu was shocked. He had felt Lu Qing and the others looked familiar, and now after being reminded, he remembered. His eyes showed disbelief. You are the young master who entered the city last time? Exactly, it is I. Uncle Hu was stunned. He had never expected that the seemingly ordinary travelers from that day were such powerful beings. Especially Ma Gu. He remembered that this person had humbly paid the city entry fee and had even bribed him graciously. Who would have thought that this person was also an exceptionally powerful martial artist? Even the inner organ realm guards of the Qi mansion were not a match for him. More importantly, how did his daughter come to know such people? Could it be that she had been spending time with them lately, which is why she missed the disciple acceptance ceremony of the Xuanxin sect? However, before Uncle Hu could ask, Lu Qing opened his mouth and asked, Uncle Hu, who are these people, and why are they harming you? Yes, Dad. Who are these people, and why did they capture you? Hu Ziji was also completely puzzled. Although her father was somewhat corrupt, he generally had good judgment in his dealings and never offended those he couldn't afford to. Why had he provoked someone like the soft-featured young man who clearly seemed to be someone of importance? These are people from the Qi mansion, and this one is the fourth son of the Qi mansion, Uncle Hu said with a bitter smile. As for the reason, it's related to the third young master Ji. People from the Qi mansion? Hu Ziji was shocked. The Qi mansion, one of the four great families of Azure Dragon City, was an unimaginable force for her father to have provoked. Dad, what in the world did you do? Hu Ziji couldn't help but ask. Just then, Lu Qing raised his hand. Let's talk about these matters later. Guests are coming. As soon as his words fell, a figure appeared on the rooftop of the residence. The person was a gorgeously dressed middle-aged man, with a ruddy complexion and a short black beard. When he saw the situation in the courtyard, his expression changed. Wanzheng, what are you doing here? What happened to your leg? Uncle 5. The soft-featured youth saw the person, his eyes showing a hint of joy. He wanted to call for help, but he was suppressed by Lu Qing's innate pressure, unable to move or even speak. He could only look at the middle-aged man in fine clothing with eyes full of hope. The middle-aged man also realized the problem. He looked at Lu Qing and felt the aura emanating from him. Despite being astonished by his youth, he still seriously gave a bow. Sir, I do not know what offense Wanjing has caused, but I implore you, for the sake of our Qi family, to show mercy and spare him this time. In the future, our Qi family will surely repay you generously. He hasn't offended me, but he has offended my friend. If you want me to release him, ask my friend if he is willing. Lu Qing said indifferently. Friend. The middle-aged man in fine clothing was taken aback, momentarily puzzled about who Lu Qing was referring to as his friend. Uncle Hu, how should we deal with these people? Lu Qing turned his head and asked Uncle Hu. Let me decide? Uncle Hu was suddenly at a loss. He looked at Qi Wanjing's leg, knowing that with his character, having a broken leg would definitely foster resentment. Once he returned, he would certainly find ways to seek massive retaliation. But to say that they should directly kill Qi Wanjing was absolutely impossible. The Qi family's influence in Azure Dragon City was immense, with several innate realm guest elders alone. Faced with such a colossal entity, even if Lu Qing and his companions were strong, they would not be able to contend. Therefore, Uncle Hu's heart was in turmoil. But after much thought, he finally gritted his teeth and said, My lord, we cannot release these people yet. The Qi family is powerful and has many experts. Without Qi Wanjing as a hostage, we might not be able to leave unscathed. Lu Qing looked at Uncle Hu somewhat surprised, not expecting someone as timid and cautious as him to have such decisiveness. Chapter 472. He looked up at the robed, middle-aged man on the roof. My friend, you heard. My other friend here said we can't release them yet. The robed, middle-aged man naturally heard what Hu Lao-san had said. He could even tell that Hu Lao-san must be a resident of the city. seeing a mere commoner daring to speak of taking a direct descendant of the Qi family as a hostage. A trace of coldness couldn't help but emerge in the robed middle-aged man's eyes. Since that's the case, I shall have no choice but to experience your remarkable skills. With that, a powerful oppressive force similarly emerged from his body, rolling towards Lu Qing and the others like a crushing wave. A quarter of an hour before Lu Qing and his companions arrived at Hu Zheji's home, at the gates of the city lord mansion, a tall and majestic figure hurried inside. Just as he reached the gate, he was stopped by a guardian with a hand. "City Guardian Zhua, please halt. If you too would, please inform the city lord that Zhua has an urgent matter to report." The two guards glanced at each other, then nodded. "Please wait a moment, City Guardian Zhua." Having said that, one of them strode into the mansion. Soon after, a middle-aged man resembling a steward, followed by the guard, came out. "Steward Lu, where is the city lord?" the imposing Great Han asked anxiously. "The master is practicing in the courtyard." "Mr. Zhua, what brings you here?" "I have an important matter to report, something that the city lord asked me to keep an eye on a few days ago. I must speak to him alone," the imposing Great Han stated solemnly. Steward Lu nodded, didn't ask further, and said, "Then, Mr. Zhua, please follow this old servant." The two entered the mansion and after several turns, finally came to a courtyard. As soon as they entered the courtyard, the imposing Great Han felt a chill that made him involuntarily shiver. The temperature in the whole courtyard was actually much lower than outside by several times. Cold air lingered, causing the flowers and plants in the courtyard to barely frosted. Compared with the warmth outside under the morning sun, it was like a different world. In the midst of the dense cold air, a figure was holding a treasure sword, practicing each move and form. As he wielded his sword, the cold air in the courtyard transformed into silver snakes, dancing and spiraling, an astonishing sight. Feeling the incredible power contained within the cold air, the imposing Great Han showed a look of admiration. Although this was not his first time seeing the city lord practice, each time he was still dazzled. He only felt that the city lord's sword techniques were filled with mystery, far beyond his understanding at the initial innate realm. Neither the imposing Great Han nor the steward dared to disturb the city lord's practice, so they waited quietly to the side. After a while, the cold air in the courtyard gradually gathered and eventually was absorbed into the city lord's body and disappeared. Steward Lu then stepped forward and respectfully said, "Master, City Guardians has something important to report." The Azure Dragon City Lord nodded and looked at the imposing Great Han. "City Lord, it's like this, the group of people you instructed me to watch for, they entered the city this morning." "What did you say?" The Azure Dragon City Lord trembled slightly, and the next moment he was in front of the imposing Great Han. "Are you sure?" Although surprised at the City Lord's momentary lapse of composure, the imposing Great Han still earnestly said, "I am certain. The city gates opened this morning, and a horse carriage entered. Among them, a young man looked exactly like the one depicted in the portrait you entrusted to me several days ago. Moreover, that group of people is almost the same as you described, City Lord. There was an elder and a young girl. The horses pulling the carriage also had white jade horns on their heads." "It really is them," the Azure Dragon City Lord murmured. "But why have they arrived so soon?" "That's right, the message from the Holy City said that the vehicle ridden by that person is the legendary wind-controlling chariot, capable of covering thousands of miles in a day. It's reasonable that they could reach Azure Dragon City in just 2 or 3 days. However, since they arrived so quickly, the information that they might be from an external province seems to be true." Thinking this, the Azure Dragon City Lord immediately asked, "Do you know where those people went?" "I am not sure. Didn't you say, City Lord, that we shouldn't follow them?" "I didn't dare to make my own decisions, so after confirming that they were the ones you instructed me to watch for, I immediately came to report." The Great Han gentleman replied respectfully, "Indeed, you did well. That person certainly must not be offended recklessly. Otherwise, if he becomes displeased, I'm afraid our entire Azure Dragon City could suffer." the Azure Dragon City Lord said approvingly. He remembered the messages he had received in the past few days, which mentioned some things that made his heart tremble. That person could even defeat the third saint and dared to slaughter the monks of Suspended Mountain to the last. Despite the size of Azure Dragon City, it absolutely could not provoke such a formidable and ruthless figure. Upon hearing City Lord's words, the great Han shuddered. A chill of dread began to creep into his heart. Honestly, when he first heard the command, he was quite puzzled. Since the City Lord was paying such close attention to Lu Qing's party, why did he specifically instruct that no one was to follow them? From his manner of speech, it seemed he was quite wary of Lu Qing and the others. But now, it looked like the City Lord was not just wary. He was almost frightened. Who exactly was that youth, to cause even the dignified overseer of the world's first checkpoint, the Azure Dragon City Lord, to be so apprehensive? For a time, the great Han's curiosity about Lu Qing and his companion's background grew immensely. After all, in his perception, that was just a youth with Qi blood realm cultivation. Even if he was a descendant from the legendary Secret Land, could he really cause the City Lord to feel such apprehension? Out of curiosity, the great Han couldn't help but ask, "City Lord, just who is that young man that you regard so highly? Don't ask about things you shouldn't." The Azure Dragon City Lord glanced at the great Han. "The background of this person is not something you can inquire about. Just remember, do not offend him at any cost. Otherwise, even I absolutely cannot guarantee your safety." Seeing the seriousness on the City Lord's face, the great Han felt a jolt in his heart, knowing he had overstepped. He immediately said, "This subordinate understands. Right. Did you see which direction they headed in the city, and whether they are leaving today?" This subordinate only saw them seem to head towards the southern part of the city. "As for whether they leave today, that I do not know." The great Han shook his head. "Ah, I hope that person leaves the city soon, and does not stay too long," prayed the Azure Dragon City Lord. The thought of driving this notion was something he didn't dare to entertain. He wanted to live for many more years. Similarly, he did not dare to get involved with that individual. After all, while that person was powerful beyond measure, and no one could fathom their true strength, they also had their fair share of troubles. Just the enmity with Suspended Mountain was enough to deter anyone who wished to make their acquaintance. Hence, the only thing the Azure Dragon City Lord could hope for now was that Lu Qing and his companions would leave the city soon. Otherwise, such a terrifyingly powerful being, who also carried so many troubles, staying in the city, made him feel like sitting on pins and needles, so unsettled it was hard for him to be at peace. Just as the Azure Dragon City Lord was praying for Lu Qing to leave Azure Dragon City quickly, suddenly, a powerful oppressive force rose in the city, accompanied by a loud shout that resounded through the entire city. "If that's the case, then I have no choice but to experience your extraordinary skills." Instantly, it alarmed many martial arts experts in the city. Innate realm pressure? Who is this person daring to use innate level power in the city? That voice, it seems like the Qi family's fifth, daring to provoke the Qi family. Let's go and enjoy the spectacle. In a flash, many figures with strong presences left their residences and hurried towards the direction of the innate realm aura. It's the voice of the fifth ancestor. "Go. Quickly send people to help. The fifth is getting in a fight?" At the same time, from a vast mansion in the city, several formidable figures flew out. "What's going on? Has Qi family's fifth gone mad?" In the City Lord mansion, the Azure Dragon City Lord was also somewhat taken aback. But the next moment, as he sensed the direction of this aura, his face suddenly turned pale. Chapter 473. Terrifying sword light, overwhelming with power. The aura is coming from the south of the city. Could it be? The Azure Dragon City Lord recalled the words that City Guardians had just spoken. Wasn't the person and his entourage heading to the south of the city? Although it was uncertain whether the sudden outburst of Qi family's fifth was related to that person. Yet, a sense of unease inexplicably arose in the heart of the Azure Dragon City Lord. He didn't hesitate, his aura surged, and his figure vanished from the courtyard. speeding towards the south of the city. As an innate realm early-stage expert, City Guardians will likewise felt the formidable momentum erupting from Chi family's fifth. Seeing the City Lord's face turn pale with shock, he instantly realized something. Immediately, he displayed his movement technique, following right behind. However, his cultivation was far inferior to the City Lord's, losing sight of him just after leaving the City Lord mansion. He had no choice but to follow the aura unleashed by Chi family's fifth, rushing towards the southern direction. While on his way, City Guardians will also sense that many powerful auras within the city were converging towards the same area. It seems that a major upheaval is about to unfold. City Guardians was heart pounded with fear, and he involuntarily quickened his pace. However, halfway to his destination, he suddenly saw a sharp sword light skyrocketing into the sky. Following that, the strong momentum of Chi family's fifth, like snow under the fierce sun, rapidly disintegrated and dissipated. In a mere few breaths, it turned into a flickering candle in the wind, on the verge of being extinguished. What? All the innate realm experts who felt this scene were greatly alarmed. From the aura, it seemed Chi family's fifth was about to perish. But from the moment he erupted with momentum, only a few breaths had passed before he faced such a swift defeat. Who could have released that terrifying sword light? Shock-filled, the multitude of innate realm experts no longer concerned themselves with secrecy. They burst forth with all their might, racing towards the position where Chi family's fifth was located. Damn it! The Azure Dragon City Lord, while en route, beholding the terrifying sword Chi and recalling the information sent from the Holy City about that person, where would he not know that what he had been dreading most still happened? What the hell did Chi family's fifth, this idiot, do? The Azure Dragon City Lord's face was ashen. A chill surged within him, and in a flash, his speed explosively increased as he sprinted forward. Little 5. The few figures emerging from the Chi mansion were full of shock and rage. Throwing aside any pretense of an agreement, they unleashed their full strength to charge forward. With numerous innate realm experts simultaneously emanating their power, mighty innate pressure instantly plunged the entire Azure Dragon City into temporary chaos. What's going on? Why would all the innate realm lords suddenly erupt with their aura? Could it be that a battle amongst innate realm experts is about to break out in the city? Quick, find somewhere to hide. An innate realm battle can easily affect the innocents. Uncle 5. In the courtyard of the Hu Zheji residence, Qi Wenjing's eyes were wide open. He watched, disbelieving, as his uncle, who had always been an incredibly powerful figure in his heart, now lay fallen on the ground. At the same time, an indescribable fear arose in his heart. Just moments ago, he had seen his uncle, an innate realm martial artist, cut down from the rooftop with just a single move by that young man. He couldn't fathom what kind of terrifying being they had provoked. Cough, cough. Chi family's fifth wasn't dead. He struggled to rise from the ground, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth, and one of his left arms had vanished without a trace. His aura was almost imperceptible, as if it might extinguish at any moment. The meridians and acupoints within his body were mostly destroyed by strands of sword Qi. But he couldn't care less about that now. Kneeling on the ground, watching Lu Qing with fear, the sword Qi from Lu Qing just now was too terrifying. He had no time to react before his arm was severed. Had the sword Qi not deviated slightly at the last moment, he would likely have been cleaved in two. Who are you? Qi family's fifth stared intently at Lu Qing. He didn't know if the deviation of the sword Qi was deliberate or if he was just fortunate. But what he did know was that the youth before him was unspeakably terrifying. With just a single sword Qi, he had heavily injured him, an innate realm small success martial artist. The depth of his cultivation was totally beyond his comprehension. Likewise, he couldn't understand when such a dreadful young man had appeared in the world, and why their Qi family hadn't heard the slightest news. Just as Lu Qing was about to speak, his eyebrows suddenly raised, and he looked up into the sky. He also restrained the innate pressure emanating from his body. Once the innate pressure was withdrawn, Qi Wenjing and the others finally got a chance to breathe and scrambled to a corner, faces filled with horror. Then, the next moment, a figure with a powerful aura appeared on the rooftop. Soon after, many more powerful auras emerged, swiftly moving in this direction, and landed atop the houses surrounding the courtyard. Among them, several figures landed directly in the yard, standing in front of Qi family's fifth. With so many innate realm experts gathered, the atmosphere at this place instantly solidified. Ordinary martial artists like Hu Lao San felt their legs weaken with utter terror. When had his small residence incited the convergence of so many innate realm experts? If not for his daughter's support at his side, he would have collapsed on the ground long ago. Little 5. Among the figures that landed in the courtyard, an older man, bearing some resemblance to Qi family's fifth, revealed a shocked and angry expression upon seeing his sorry state. Who harmed you? The other numerous innate realm experts also took in the situation in the yard and were visibly moved. Chapter 474. Qi family's fifth was unexpectedly crippled in one arm, and judging by his aura and internal condition, it was not looking optimistic. Everyone turned their gaze towards the opposite side, wanting to find out who it was that had inflicted such a heavy injury on Qi family's fifth in such a short time, a person of the innate minor achievement realm. However, before they could identify the person, Lu Qing already spoke faintly. It was me. Everyone immediately focused their gaze on Lu Qing. There was shock, skepticism, and even disbelief. There was no way around it. Lu Qing was simply too young. No one could believe that the person who had grievously injured Qi family's fifth could be such a young lad. Only one person, upon seeing Lu Qing and his companions, shuddered visibly, showing an incredulous expression. But at that moment, a sharp voice erupted. Uncle, second uncle. It was him. This kid hurt Uncle 5, and he even chopped off my leg. You must not let him go. Wenjing, why are you here too? Boss of Qi family and Qi family second only then noticed Qi Wenjing and a group of house slaves in the corner. Hearing Wenjing's words, everyone's gaze once again converged on Lu Qing. Was it really this youth who had injured Qi family's fifth? Boss of Qi family was equally shocked, but he still managed to compose himself. In a deep voice he said, Who are you, sir? And why did you ruthlessly attack my brother? Even if my brother offended you, don't you think you went too far? Too far? I already spared his life. Is that also called going too far? Lu Qing shook his head. You should be grateful that he didn't show any intent to kill me earlier. Breaking his arm was just a minor warning. Otherwise, he would be a corpse by now. What arrogance! Qi family second, clearly hot-headed, was about to retort sarcastically. Just then, Qi family's fifth's weak voice rang out. Elder brother, second brother, he's telling the truth. He really did show mercy earlier. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be seeing you now. Old 5, what are you saying? Qi family second abruptly turned around. But Qi family's fifth wasn't looking at his second brother. Instead, he stared intently at Lu Qing. Hearing Lu Qing's previous words, he finally realized that the sword Qi from before hadn't missed by mistake. Lu Qing had done it deliberately. Thank you for showing mercy, sir. It was indeed my fault earlier. I would like to apologize to you here. After saying this, ignoring the pain of his broken arm and his internal injuries, he clumsily, with one hand, performed a salute, slightly bowed to Lu Qing. At this moment, everyone was stunned. No one expected Qi family's fifth to act like this. The severely injured man was actually offering a placatory gesture to his enemy. Since when had the always domineering Qi family become so amenable? Even Lu Qing was taken aback. Looking at Qi family's fifth, his gaze held a touch more respect. However, although Qi family's fifth was appeasing, another person was not. Upon seeing his uncle submitting to the enemy, Wenjing immediately shouted, Uncle, what are you doing? Uncle and second uncle are here. What's there to be afraid of? This kid has cut off our limbs. He is challenging the dignity of our Qi family. We can't just let this go. I want to chop off his limbs too. Torment him for 10 days and 10 nights. Otherwise, I can't quench the hatred in my heart. Shut up. Seeing Wanzheng still being so reckless, Qi family's fifth, furious, nearly fainted on the spot. If it weren't for his severe injuries preventing him from emitting any strong energy, he would have killed that infuriating brat himself. Couldn't this fool see that this youth was not someone their Qi family could afford to provoke? However, what caused Qi family's fifth to really despair was hearing Wanzheng's words. His second brother, always a bit obtuse, actually nodded in agreement. Wanzheng is right, this kid dared to hurt you, which means he is going against our Qi family. In Azure Dragon City, no one can offend our Qi family and get away with it. Just a mere newbie of the initial innate realm. How strong could he be? Look, I am going to get revenge for you right now. As he spoke, an aura appeared around him, and the battle axe in his hand also surged with a faint red strong energy. Second brother, hold on. Qi family's fifth was horrified, but with no strength at that moment, he was completely unable to stop his second brother, who was a level stronger than him. He could only watch helplessly as he charged towards that formidable youth. As expected, a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. Lu Qing shook his head, and without any apparent movement, just a faint glimmer of light around his body. Then, in the next moment, everyone watched in horror, as the primordial Qi of heaven and earth began converging at a terrifying speed. In an instant, a massive sword Qi formed in front of Lu Qing, slashing directly at the head of Qi family second. How is this possible? Qi family second's eyes widened in horror as he felt the terrifying force within the sword Qi. Without time to think, he had no choice but to raise his divine weapon battle axe to block. Boom! The sword Qi struck the battle axe, unleashing a rampant airflow and tremendous force. Qi family second couldn't maintain his stance. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, he was pushed backward at high speed by the fearsome sword Qi, which was entirely condensed from the heaven and earth primordial Qi, pressing against the battle axe. Ah! Qi family second's true Qi boiled over as he burst out with all his might, desperately trying to resist. However, it was utterly futile. With an unstoppable momentum, the sword Qi pushed him, smashing through the wall behind him and into another house, raising a cloud of dust. Deathly silence. Complete silence. Everyone stared dumbfounded at the long trail from the courtyard to the house outside. That was the path Qi family second had carved out as he resisted with all his might. Second brother. Brother too. Several breaths later, two cries of shock echoed. Boss of Qi family leaped forward, rushing into the half-collapsed house. However, upon seeing his brother, his heart sank. His younger brother was lying unconscious amid the ruins, his body covered in numerous sword wounds, bloody and too ghastly to behold. He quickly felt his brother's pulse and was even more alarmed, for his brother's meridians and acupoints had been completely destroyed. His internal organs were nearly pulverized into dust. Even if he could be healed, he would likely be crippled for life. After stuffing an elixir into his brother's mouth, boss of Qi family, holding back his grief, returned to the courtyard. Big brother, how is the second brother? Qi family's fifth urgently asked. Your second brother's meridians are destroyed, and his internal organs are nearly reduced to rubble. Even if he recovers, he'll likely become a cripple, boss of Qi family said gravely. How can this be? Qi family's fifth shuddered, his gaze becoming vacant as if unable to accept this outcome. The other powerhouses who heard this were also shaken. They had never imagined Qi family second's injuries would be so severe. They also felt awe and fear towards Lu Qing's strength. Who exactly was this person, and how had he managed to wield such a technique that seemed beyond the capabilities of someone in the innate realm? Divine melt heaven and earth. This person must have reached this realm. Only the Azure Dragon City Lord, observing from the rooftop, recognized a clue. However, his heart was also shocked. In his life, he had seen only 3 others reach such a realm. Those were the 3 Saint Masters from Holy Mountain. And now Lu Qing was the 4th. What was crucial was that he was still so young. No wonder he could defeat the 3rd Saint Master. His deep mastery of the realm is even beyond my grasp. Azure Dragon City Lord thought to himself in awe. He also temporarily dismissed the idea of intervening. He noticed that though Lu Qing's strikes were harsh, they were measured. He had not taken any lives in his 2 actions. However, 3 strikes were usually the limit. Next, it would depend on the Qi family's attitude. According to messages from Holy City, this person's patience was limited. If the Qi family still didn't know better, they might truly enrage him. At that point, the situation might truly become irreparable. Although he didn't want to see that happen, he genuinely didn't wish to contact this person before Lu Qing calmed down. What if his residual rage was directed at him? That would indeed be unjust. Chapter 475. Crushed into a meat patty. Plague. Lu Qing disabled the second of the Qi family with a single sword Qi, immediately intimidating everyone present. Every gaze that turned towards him was inevitably filled with awe. This was the case even for the numerous innate realm experts. Even their sense of shock was greater. As innate realm experts themselves, methods like sword Qi were naturally within their capabilities. However, their power was far inferior to what Lu Qing had just demonstrated. The sword Qi that Lu Qing had just released gathered the heaven and earth primordial Qi, rolling forward with overwhelming momentum and crushing everything in its path. Such an earth-shattering method, they couldn't even begin to execute, let alone comprehend how Lu Qing had accomplished it. Only ones like the Azure Dragon City Lord, who had already grasped the essence of the perfect innate realm, could catch a glimpse of the underlying principle. The courtyard fell silent. Everyone quietly watched the boss of the Qi family, curious about how he would react. Would he show submission, or would he remain defiant until death against this young man? Those who had grievances against the Qi family even revealed a hint of schadenfreude. The Qi family had always been domineering in Azure Dragon City, relying on their numerous innate realm experts to hoard various resources. This time, they wanted to see if faced with Lu Qing, this tough nut, the Qi family would still dare to act arrogant. Boss of the Qi family naturally sensed the eyes of those around him. He discreetly gathered his energy, suppressing his emotions and regaining his composure. Facing the tranquil Lu Qing, he bowed deeply. Young hero, there were many offenses by our Qi family just now, and we have offended you. Please show great mercy and forgive us this time. The Qi family is willing to offer a generous gift as an apology. Watching as the boss of the Qi family bowed deeply, everyone was stunned. They had anticipated that he might back down, but they had never thought he would lower himself to such an extent. Keep in mind, 2 major innate realm experts of the Qi family had been disabled by Lu Qing, especially the Qi family second, who was critically injured and on the verge of death, uncertain if he would survive. Such deep-seated vendetta, yet the boss of the Qi family was able to endure. For a moment, along with their shock, everyone became even more wary of him. Interesting. Faced with the boss's humble attitude, Lu Qing was also somewhat surprised. He quietly observed the other, especially the few banners of words that appeared in his vision. However, when he read one particular banner of words, his gaze suddenly darkened. Seeing Lu Qing's silence and that penetrating gaze, the boss suddenly felt a chill in his heart, thinking that this person was not interested in reconciling. He clenched his teeth, made a virtual grip that summoned a wind, and with a shriek, suddenly pulled Qi Wenjing from the corner. "Uncle, what are you doing?" Qi Wenjing's face showed panic, and he struggled. But the boss of the Qi family simply ignored his struggles. He just looked at Lu Qing and said solemnly, "Young hero, since everything stemmed from this little beast, I'll give you a resolution now." After speaking, he lifted his right palm, and with a speed faster than lightning, slammed it onto the forehead of the horrified Qi Wenjing. The boss's cultivation was profound. How could Qi Wenjing, a mere postnatal realm martial artist, resist? The palm force penetrated, and immediately, Qi Wenjing's body stiffened. His gaze gradually scattered. Then he slowly slumped to the ground, his life dissipating. This sudden event, out of the blue, caught everyone off guard. Nobody expected the boss to be so ruthless, to kill his own nephew without mercy. Wanzheng, the second of the Qi family, cried out in grief, his face showing disbelief. "Big brother, what are you doing?" "Shut up," the boss shouted. "This little beast courted death, provoking this young hero and bringing calamity upon our family. I only regret not being there at that moment. Otherwise, I would have killed him on the spot, and neither you nor the second would have been involved. Now, dying in front of this young hero is already a great honor for him." These words shook everyone once more. Everyone knew that the boss of the Qi family said this for Lu Qing to hear. But seeing how righteous and awe-inspiring he appeared, they still felt a sense of admiration. To have such thick skin was indeed something. While the boss scolded the fifth, his attention was always on Lu Qing. However, what slightly startled him was that after hearing his words, Lu Qing did not change his expression. Instead, he emotionlessly set his gaze on the now lifeless Qi Wanzheng beside him. Seeing this, the boss felt a thump in his heart. He continued respectfully, "Young hero, if there is anything else you are dissatisfied with, please speak freely. As long as you're willing to convert hostility into friendship, no matter the request, my Qi family will do our utmost to fulfill it." However, even though the boss had lowered himself so much, Lu Qing remained indifferent. He looked up, with a smile that was not quite a smile, and said, "Good decision to preserve yourself. You even killed your own nephew. But your methods are still too lenient. How about I help you out?" With that, Lu Qing flicked his finger, sending a draft of wind towards the heart meridian of the dead Qi Wanzheng. Seeing this, the boss's face changed, and he sent out a sword Qi to scatter the wind. With an ugly expression, he said, "Young hero, are you really going to be so aggressive? Isn't death a sufficient atonement? Are you going to desecrate the corpse of a youngster to vent your anger?" This again took everyone by surprise. Chapter 476. People with a keen mind immediately sensed something was amiss. Since the boss of Qi family dared to sacrifice Qi Wanzheng's life to atone for his sins, why would he suddenly become so anxious about his nephew's corpse? Could it be that there was some trickery at play? "Are you trying to insult the corpse?" Lu Qing chuckled lightly. "Are you sure that this nephew of yours is truly dead? I do not understand what the young hero implies. If you harbor doubts, you are welcome to personally examine Wanzheng's corpse to see if there is any life left in him. However, the dead deserve respect, so I hope the young hero would kindly refrain from denigrating his body and tarnishing your own reputation," said the boss of Qi family calmly. "There's no need." Lu Qing shook his head, to the boss's surprise. "Whether this man is dead or alive, what does it have to do with me? Besides, did I ever say that I would drop the matter just because he was dead? What do you mean by this?" The boss of Qi family's face turned ashen. "My meaning is quite clear." Lu Qing's eyes hardened. "To preserve yourself, you even went as far as to kill your nephew. Your patience and ruthlessness unsettle me. If you were in my shoes, would you let such a risk remain unchecked? Moreover, do you really think that the sins of the Qi family have gone unnoticed by others?" Hearing these words, the boss of Qi family's complexion changed drastically. Without a second thought, he bellowed, "Attack!" A broken sword materialized in his hand, and his true Qi burst into flames in an instant. His powerful sword intent surfaced, turning his body into an arrow shot explosively at Lu Qing. At the same time, several guest elders of the innate realm who had been following close behind also unleashed their formidable presence, joining forces to form an array and bearing down on Lu Qing. This sudden turn of events once again shocked all the powerhouses present. Nobody would have expected the previously humble boss of Qi family to suddenly make a move. They couldn't help but widen their eyes, eager to see if Lu Qing could withstand this unexpected, overwhelming assault. "Idiot!" The only one who cursed inwardly upon witnessing the scene was the Azure Dragon City Lord. While the boss of Qi family's cultivation was not weak, only slightly inferior to his own, he too had reached the great success of innate realm. Together with several guest elders who had honed their skills in the innate realm for many years, their joined array seemed immensely formidable. But how could such power possibly be a match for Lu Qing? After all, this man had effortlessly destroyed the arrays of the monks from Suspended Mountain. Little bastard, die! The boss of Qi family, erupting with his burning true Qi, moved incredibly fast and almost in the blink of an eye arrived in front of Lu Qing. His eyes filled with viciousness. The broken sword carrying his mighty sword intent created multiple sword shadows that thrust towards Lu Qing. Behind him, the several guest elders also executed their ultimate moves, enveloping Lu Qing with their attacks. As the strike was released, a wave of pride rose within their hearts. They believed that even someone at the perfect innate realm would struggle to withstand their combined strike, let alone Lu Qing who was unarmed. No matter how high his cultivation might be, or how fierce his sword Qi, it seemed impossible to cut through their onslaught. The many powerhouses watching from the sidelines also felt chills running down their spines. They sensed that if they were in his place, they would certainly be unable to survive under such an attack. However, faced with such a ferocious onslaught, Lu Qing's expression didn't fluctuate in the slightest. He simply raised his palm slightly and made a gesture in the air. He then gently uttered a single word, "Stop!" As this word was uttered, a shocking scene unfolded. Whether it was the boss of Qi family racing at high speed, or the several innate realm guest elders following him, everyone was frozen in place in an instant, like insects caught in a web, unable to move. This abrupt shift from extreme motion to extreme stillness made everyone feel uneasy. The fierce pulling force caused the boss of Qi family and the others to be hit by the backlash of their true Qi, blood spewing from their mouths as they suffered serious internal injuries. Their eyes were filled with unimaginable terror. But that wasn't all. After halting the assault of the boss of Qi family and the others, Lu Qing's hand, which had been softly raised, pushed downwards. Suppress. Following this motion, the boss of Qi family and his companions were terrified to discover that their bodies suddenly became dozens of times heavier. Beneath the crushing force, no matter how they struggled and burst forth, it was all in vain. They could only follow Lu Qing's movements and fall to the ground. Boom! Before everyone's eyes, a terrifying scene unfolded. Centered around boss of Qi family and his people within several meters of the ground, it suddenly sank several feet. But even with such a commotion, not a speck of dust was raised. All the dust clung to the ground, unable to float. Boss of Qi family and his people were firmly suppressed on the ground, their blood seeping in, turning them into meat patties. Such a strange scene instantly brought a chill from the depths of the hearts of all the spectators, shooting straight to their crowns. Big Brother, because he was far enough away and had escaped disaster, Qi V, seeing such a gruesome scene, immediately let out a heart-wrenching howl. He could sense that the life energy of Big Brother and several guest elders was slowly fading away. Clearly, under Lu Qing's mysterious and terrifying methods, Big Brother and the others hadn't made it through and had already perished. Devil, you devil! Give me back my Big Brother's life. Qi V stared at Lu Qing with blood-red eyes, as if he wished he could tear him apart and eat his flesh. Devil, huh? Lu Qing chuckled lightly. Compared to what your Qi family has done, what is this really? Qi Tianquan, do you really think that no one knows about the atrocities your Qi family committed in Fengzhou? What are you talking about? Originally with blood-red eyes, Qi V, upon hearing the two words Fengzhou, suddenly shivered and looked at Lu Qing with shock and suspicion. Fengzhou? Everyone was taken aback, not understanding why Lu Qing would suddenly bring this up. Only those who were well-informed and quick-witted seemed to remember something, revealing an incredulous look as they turned to Qi V. If you don't want anyone to know, don't do it at all, Qi Tianquan. The outrageous crimes your Qi family committed in Fengzhou may have been well concealed. But the heavenly Tao is clear, and this number of heaven cannot be hidden by a mere Qi family. Qi V listened in increasing fear, his face turning pale. Impossible, you can't possibly know about that. Who exactly are you? Seeing Qi V's demeanor, all the powerful experts there knew he must be guilty of something. One of the experts immediately called out, Fengzhou? Qi V? Could it be that the recent plague in Fengzhou was really caused by your Qi family? Fengzhou plague. The plague was caused by the Qi family? Wasn't that outbreak a coincidence? I always felt that plague was odd. So it turns out it was the Qi family's doing. That plague killed over 100,000 people. The Qi family is truly heartless and cruel. A group of innate realm experts started to discuss among themselves. Plague! The elder doctor, who had been standing in a corner silently protecting little Yen and the others, suddenly turned pale when he heard this. Ah Qing, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Disciple also deduced it from the aura emanating from these people of the Qi family. Lu Qing nodded. The elder doctor's face turned ashen, especially after hearing the discussion from the surrounding experts that over 100,000 people had died from that plague. His expression became even grimmer. Initially, he felt that Lu Qing had been too harsh. But if the Qi family really had unleashed a plague, then even dying many times over would be considered lenient. You demon, you're slandering. Qi V also reacted by now, bellowing out loudly. With such ruthless methods, you have killed so many of my Qi family, and now you're throwing dirty water onto my Qi family. City Lord, are you just going to stand by and watch? Not dispensing justice. The Azure Dragon City Lord, who had been quietly observing from the shadows, suddenly changed his expression when he heard Qi V's words. This damned fool, daring to drag him into this. But just as he thought to avoid this, it was already too late. Chapter 477. Azure Dragon City Lord felt a sudden sense of foreboding when he heard the shout from Qi family's fifth. He wanted to avoid it, but it was already too late. The innate realm experts around him were all looking at him. Even Lu Qing raised his head and fixed his gaze on him. Azure Dragon City Lord? Lu Qing looked at the City Lord. He naturally did not ignore this middle-aged man who was the first to arrive here and whose aura was faintly the most powerful among the many innate realm experts present. It was just that Lu Qing had seen him only as an observer and without any other actions, so he had not bothered with him until now. However, it was unexpected that this man was the City Lord of this most formidable pass in the world. Feeling Lu Qing's gaze, the Azure Dragon City Lord stiffened. Knowing that it was no longer possible to avoid confrontation, he had to boldly come down from the rooftop. He clasped his hands and bowed, saying, I am Zhang Yizhi, the one who guards the city, and I have seen the young Master Lu. Upon hearing these words, everyone's expression changed dramatically. This statement from the Azure Dragon City Lord revealed too much information. First, there was his attitude. Being the Lord of Azure Dragon City, his status in the city naturally went without saying. His strength was extremely formidable, ranking him at the top within the city with no one stronger than him. Thus, even the four great families had to behave respectfully toward him. Yet such a powerful existence with a high-ranking background and adversity was showing such a low attitude toward Lu Qing. And from his form of address, it was apparent that he was aware of the origins of this formidable young man in front of him, and was extremely fearful and wary. This could not help but cause the numerous experts present to stir their thoughts and speculate much. No wonder he had been merely an observant bystander since his arrival, without saying a word. Everyone had found it odd, but it turned out there was a deep reason. As for Qi family's fifth, he was even more stunned. He had revealed the identity of the City Lord to provoke him into action. After all, as the Lord of the city, to allow outsiders to slaughter his citizens without lifting a finger would indeed significantly damage his authority. But he had never expected that the Azure Dragon City Lord would be so courteous to Lu Qing. Not only was his attitude extremely submissive, but it also vaguely conveyed a sense of reverence. Qi family's fifth felt a sense of foreboding and hurriedly shouted, City Lord, this person is cruel and has continuously harmed my second brother and eldest brother, now even slandering them. You must stand up for our Qi family. However, the Azure Dragon City Lord did not even glance at Qi family's fifth. He just continued looking at Lu Qing and respectfully said, I did not know about young Master Lu's visit to our small city. Zhang has lost the chance to welcome you from afar, and I hope for your forgiveness. Oh, City Lord knows me? Lu Qing feigned surprise. Young Master Lu's battle in the Holy City has deterred the masses, and his fame has spread far. Zhang was fortunate to have received some news and learned of young Master's great name. I just didn't expect you to arrive so quickly, hence the loss of a proper welcome. I hope young Master can forgive me. The Azure Dragon City Lord bowed again, his tone sincere. So the news came from the Holy City. Lu Qing smiled. Since that's the case, I'll dispense with further words. I just have one question. City Lord, do you intend to stand up for the Qi family? The Azure Dragon City Lord was so startled that he quickly waved his hands and said, Dare not, young Master Lu. Do not misunderstand. Zhang only sensed the eruption of the innate realm's aura and came to investigate. Had I known earlier that young Master was handling affairs here, Zhang would most certainly not have interfered. Since the Qi family dared to offend young Master, they must have brought it upon themselves. I have absolutely no intention of interfering. Seeing the Azure Dragon City Lord decisively distancing himself from the Qi family, everyone was again astonished. What exactly was the origin of this young Master Lu, to make even the typically resolute city lord so fearful? The battle in the Holy City? Could it be that something earth-shattering had recently occurred there? The gathered experts all thought differently, each resolving to have their people find out what had recently happened at the Holy City upon their return. I believe you are mistaken, City Lord. My killing of Boss Qi and the others was not merely because they offended me, but because these members of the Qi family bear heavy sins, unforgivable, and their deaths are warranted. Lu Qing shook his head. The Azure Dragon City Lord thought quickly. Could it be the matter in Fengzhou that young Master mentioned earlier? Correct, the Fengzhou plague was instigated by the Qi family, resulting in the deaths of over 100,000 people. City Lord, don't you think they deserve to die? The Azure Dragon City Lord had not yet spoken when Qi family's fifth burst out angrily. Defamation! You keep saying that the plague in Fengzhou was stirred up by our Qi family. What proof do you have? I know where the evidence is. Just then, a voice rang out, drawing everyone's attention. When people looked over, they found that the speaker was none other than Hu Laosan. This shocked everyone. No one expected that at this time, a postnatal muscle-bone realm practitioner would dare to stand up. Qi family's fifth shuddered, staring at Hu Laosan. No matter how quickly his mind raced, he could not figure out when his family had ever had any dealings with this weak ant. Dad! Even Hu Zizhi was surprised, looking at her father, unable to speak for a moment. But Hu Laosan had no time to say more to his daughter. He took a few steps forward, clasped his fists, and bowed solemnly. Gatekeeper Hu Laosan, at your service, City Lord. The Azure Dragon City Lord did not expect that the one daring to testify against the Qi family would actually be one of his subordinates. Chapter 478. The city gate guards, being individuals of low status, naturally were unrecognizable to the Azure Dragon City Lord. However, upon seeing that Hu Laosan stepped out from behind Lu Qing, his demeanor instantly became amiable, and he said, There's no need for excess formalities. You just said that you know where there is evidence of the Qi family's involvement in triggering the Fengzhou plague. Is that true? Yes, I wouldn't dare to fabricate such a claim.
Hu Laosan replied.
Where is the evidence now? The evidence is not with me, but in the hands of third young Master Ji. At this revelation, everyone was once again shocked. How did this matter involve the Ji family's youngest son? Fire! At this moment, a startled cry rang out, and a figure dropped down from the roof. Honorable warrior, do you know where my Feier is? The crowd saw that it was the Ji family master, who had landed in the courtyard. Seeing the anxious look on the Ji family master's face, everyone understood the situation. Rumor had it that the Ji family's youngest son had been missing for some time, so it was no wonder that he was so distraught upon suddenly hearing news of him. Ji family master, please be assured, the third young master should currently be safe from any fatal danger, Hu Laosan reassured. Hearing that his son was still alive, the Ji family master's heart eased, and he continued to ask urgently, Where is the young one now? I'm sorry. I cannot disclose his location at present, G family master. Although the third young master is not in life-threatening danger, he has still sustained serious injuries. I cannot reveal his whereabouts carelessly. Right. The Ji family master suddenly realized that Hu Lao San had said his youngest son possessed evidence regarding the Funjo plague. Clearly, his recent disappearance was related to this. Should the hiding place be leaked now, the consequences could be unimaginable. He broke out in a cold sweat, realizing that, had Hu Lao San not been cautious, he might have inadvertently brought doom upon his own son. With this in mind, the Ji family master looked at Hu Lao San with a touch of gratitude. Hu Lao San, you just mentioned that there is evidence of the Funjo plague in the hands of third young master Ji. Is that so? The Azure Dragon City Lord asked with composure, waiting until the Ji family master had calmed down before inquiring. This is according to a personal letter third young master Ji left for me. It's absolutely true. Where is that letter now? The letter has been destroyed by me. When I had just finished reading the letter and hadn't yet notified the Ji family, Qi family's fourth's men broke in, led by him. In desperation, I had to destroy the letter at once, to avoid exposing the whereabouts of third young master Ji. Upon hearing this, Qi family's fifth, who had been feeling uneasy, was somewhat relieved. He first glanced at the corpse of Qi Wenjing, resenting him for not reporting such a significant matter to the family in advance. Then, he began to play the victim. City Lord, you've heard them as well. These are just their side of the story. These people are all suspicious, and their only intention is to slander our Qi family. You must certainly render justice for us. Seeing Qi family's fifth with a face full of grievances, Lu Qing looked at him curiously, which only made Qi family's fifth more uneasy. But he knew that this was no time to back down. Otherwise, if the blame for causing the plague were to be confirmed, their Qi family would fall into an irretrievable abyss. Despite his trepidation, he still shouted fiercely, "You scoundrel, what are you looking at? Don't think that, with your formidable cultivation, you can cover the sky with one hand. If you're really so overbearing and want to defame our Qi family, then I'll simply petition Holy Mountain and request that the three Saint Masters see justice is done for us. You dared to incite combat at the innate level within the city and violently massacred our Qi family's innate, violating the Holy Mountain's edicts. I refuse to believe that even Holy Mountain won't give our Qi family fair judgment." The mention of Holy Mountain sent a shiver through everyone's hearts. While Holy Mountain seldom intervened, the rule against sparking innate level battles within the city was an edict of Holy Mountain. Once someone violated it, even if they escaped to the ends of the earth, they would still be held accountable by Holy Mountain. However, when Qi family's fifth made his stand, before Lu Qing had any reaction, the Azure Dragon City Lord was already looking at him with a strange expression. Regrettably, Qi family's fifth did not notice his look. At that moment, all his hatred was focused on Lu Qing. Indeed, the guilty party files the suit first. Lu Qing shook his head, no longer wanting to waste words with them. With a minor thought, a sword Qi materialized and slashed towards Qi family's fifth. Qi family's fifth's eyes bulged in an instant. He never expected Lu Qing to strike at this time. Though he wanted to dodge, severely injured as he already was, how could he possibly evade Lu Qing's sharp sword Qi? He was instantly cleaved in two by the sword Qi, dying immediately. What gave you the illusion that I would worry about Holy Mountain's view if I wished to kill you? With a casual slash, Lu Qing executed Qi family's fifth, and his voice rose calmly. What? Lu Qing's move took everyone by surprise. All the experts looked at him in astonishment. None of them had expected that after he mentioned Holy Mountain, he would still dare to kill someone in public. This was clearly a sign of complete disregard for Holy Mountain. Only the Azure Dragon City Lord, despite his heart skipping a few beats, managed to keep his face calm, seemingly not surprised by this turn of events. City Lord, since third young Master Ji has the evidence in hand, I will not mince words further. If you still have doubts, you may investigate the truth yourself. I won't stay any longer. After killing Qi family's fifth, Lu Qing showed no change in expression, as if he had merely stepped on an ant. But he no longer had the desire to stay here any longer. Young Master Lu jests. Qi family's fifth's threatening demeanor just now clearly indicated his guilty conscience. Even if the Qi family is not the mastermind behind the epidemic in Fengzhou, they must be connected to it. I, Zhang, will certainly investigate thoroughly and will not let the Qi family escape justice, the city lord stated. Hearing these words, everyone's eyelids twitched. Good heavens, it seems the city lord is already condemning the Qi family. Could this young man's background really be that frightening, to the point that even the usually fair city lord completely abandons his principles, seeking only to please him? In that case, I shall take my leave. Lu Qing turned away and said to Hu Zheji, Miss Hu, Uncle Hu, it seems you can no longer stay in Azure Dragon City. Why not leave the city with us for the time being? Okay. Hu Zheji didn't even think before agreeing immediately. As for Uncle Hu, he hesitated briefly but did not object. This time they had thoroughly offended the Qi family. Whether the Qi family would seek revenge, he did not know. But he and his daughter definitely couldn't stay in the city any longer. Otherwise, who knows if they might be found dead in their home one day. Dad, let's pack our things. After the experience in Central State, Hu Zheji had grown tougher. Immediately, she helped her father gather their belongings, ignoring the strong experts still around, and went inside the house to pack their luggage. Before long, the two emerged with their valuable possessions all packed, each carrying a bundle. Mr. Lu, we are ready. Nodded Lu Qing and turned to walk out. Let's go. Ji family master. Third young Master Ji's location is on this piece of paper. He's been seriously injured, you should hurry. I'm afraid he won't last if you're too late. Uncle Hu took out a slip of paper and handed it to Ji family master. After Ji family master received the paper, Uncle Hu glanced at his house of many years one last time with Hu Zheji's assistance and followed them out. Seeing Lu Qing and the others leave as if no one else mattered, the innate realm experts exchanged glances, but likewise not a single one dared to speak out or intervene. After all, even the city lord had just stood by, so they dared not make any moves themselves. It wasn't until they could no longer sense the presence of Lu Qing and his group that someone approached the Azure Dragon City Lord. City Lord, are we truly letting them go just like that? Would you like to try stopping him? The City Lord countered with a glare at the foolish man before him. City Lord, who exactly is this individual that commands such fear from you? He started an innate level conflict right in the city and just leaves triumphantly, while we show no response. If Holy Mountain faults us, I'm afraid none of us will escape punishment, another said. Rest assured, Holy Mountain will not punish us, the Azure Dragon City Lord said enigmatically, because this individual is now in existence that even Holy Mountain does not dare to provoke lightly. Chapter 479. The Way of the Evil Cultivator, the Mark of the Poisonous Fog. City Lord, what are you saying? Everyone was astounded and turned to look at the Azure Dragon City Lord. They wanted to see if there was any trace of jest on his face. What sort of jest could this be? In this world, was there an existence that even the Holy Mountain dared not provoke? Even those legendary 4 great secret places, at most, were on equal footing with the Holy Mountain. They were far from reaching a level where even the Holy Mountain dared not provoke them. Do not think I am joking. Do you know what this young Master Lu did in the Holy City not long ago? The Azure Dragon City Lord sighed and said, What significant event happened in the Holy City? A thought struck everyone's hearts, recalling the words the City Lord had previously said. Everyone knew that within the City Lord Mansion, there was a wondrous array. It could communicate unobstructedly across thousands of miles with the Holy City, transmitting messages swiftly. It seemed the City Lord had received some alarming news. Just a few days ago, on the day when the heaven and earth Dao sound resounded again, this young Master Lu, in the Holy City with his physical body, provoked the tribulation clouds. He crossed the 9 tribulation thunders, becoming the first person to cross the tribulation since the changes in heaven and earth and the recovery of spiritual energy. After he completed the tribulation, he decisively slain many high monks from the lineage of Suspended Mountain. Even the third saint who intervened to stop him was defeated under his blade. He shocked the entire holy city, and no one dared to challenge his sharp edge. In the end, the holy mountain also did not punish him. Such an existence, do you think it is something our Azure Dragon City can provoke? The first tribulation crossing individual since the changes of heaven and earth. Killing the high monks of Suspended Mountain and defeating the third saint with his blade. Every sentence spoken by the Azure Dragon City Lord made the hearts of the group of innate realm experts tremble. Especially the part about defeating the third saint, which left everyone deeply shocked. The three saint masters on the holy mountain, in their hearts, were considered invincible existences. Now one of them was said to have been defeated by a youth. How could they not be incredulous? City Lord, are you speaking the truth? That young master is just a youth, yet he possesses such terrifying power. Someone asked in disbelief. Did you not all just see? The boss of the Qi family's cultivation is not inferior to any of yours. Yet he was crushed into a meat patty in the span of a backhand move. With such methods, who among you can withstand it? Remembering the strange technique Lu Qing had used just before, everyone fell silent. Let alone withstanding, they didn't even understand what kind of power Lu Qing had used. Furthermore, not to mention young Master Lu, even his master, that elder from a moment ago, is no ordinary individual. On the holy mountain, he once displayed a sword energy domain. The strength of his power made even the peerless experts from the four great secret places exclaim in admiration. They referred to him as having no rivals beneath innate perfection. Sword energy domain. Upon hearing this, everyone again felt a wave of silence. A domain that was a realm they could only look up to but never reach. An innate realm possessor of a domain, in some respects, could be considered even rarer than innate realm perfection. And a sword Dao domain among the many domains was known to have the strongest lethality. That unremarkable elder from before was actually such a terrifyingly powerful expert. At this point, the crowd finally understood why the city lord had previously been so humble in his demeanor. Facing such an extraordinary devil, humility was a must. If even the people of Suspended Mountain dared to be killed, how could he, the Azure Dragon City Lord, be regarded in their eyes? If they were angered, everyone here might not escape unscathed. Thinking of this, any slight disdain they had previously felt for the Azure Dragon City Lord immediately vanished into thin air. There was even a faint sense of gratitude. It was fortunate that he had managed to stabilize that young master. Otherwise, they, unaware of the circumstances, might have already offended him. City Lord, what should we do now? At that moment, someone asked. First, let's investigate the affair of the Qi family. The Azure Dragon City Lord replied with a cold laugh. The outbreak of plague in Fengzhou, there was already doubt on the holy mountain. Feeling it erupted too strangely, without warning. Now it seems, there really might be someone playing a sinister role in the shadows. Everyone looked at the innate experts of the Qi family who had died on the spot. Understanding that with this command from the city lord, the Qi family was thoroughly doomed. No matter whether or not the Qi family was responsible, now that they had provoked that individual. To calm his anger, the city lord would not let them off easily. Qi family master, that Hu Lao San said, in the hands of your young master, there is evidence of the Qi family instigating the plague. Please go and retrieve the evidence. Everyone else, follow me to the Qi family. Control the remaining people of the Qi family first. The Azure Dragon City Lord was a decisive person, making up his mind and immediately ordering. Yes, we understand. At such times, naturally, no one would go against his will, and they promptly responded in chorus. Especially those who were originally at odds with the Qi family, their eyes revealed excitement. The Qi family, relying on their numerous innate realm members and powerful influence, had always been domineering in the city. Many forces within the city had conflicts with them. Seeing the Qi family about to be wiped out, how could they not be thrilled? Immediately, the Qi family master took his family's innate realm experts, according to the note left by Hu Lao-san, and went to meet his son. The rest followed the Azure Dragon City Lord, with a mighty force, towards the Qi family. At that time, the third young Master Ji must have been targeted by the people of the Qi family. He said he was marked with a poisonous fog seal. Once inside the city, not only was there a possibility of being discovered, but he could also bring the poisonous fog into the city, harming the citizens, so he had to hide outside the city. Chapter 480. I was on duty at the city gate at the time, and later a child suddenly handed me a letter. Still, the Qi family's people found something suspicious. I had just returned home and finished reading the letter when Qi Wenjing burst in with his men. It's strange to say, I had been very careful, and I don't know where I slipped up. While many innate realm experts were heading to the Qi family's residence, Lu Qing and the others were also going towards the city gate. Along the way, Old Hu told Lu Qing about what had happened before they arrived. After taking the medicine prepared by the elder doctor, his injuries had mostly healed, and he was mostly unimpeded.
Poisonous fog.
Lu Qing fell into thought. After a while, he said, "The Qi family's people discovering something suspicious might not be related to you. The problem is probably with that letter." Letter? Old Hu was puzzled. Exactly. If the third young Master Ji really contracted the poisonous fog mark, anything he touched would carry a hint of poisonous fog. Even though it's faint, if the Qi family has the corresponding magic artifact or cultivation technique, and they were close enough, they should have been able to detect it. Magic artifact? Old Hu was even more confused. You can think of it as some sort of object with special powers, but that magic artifact probably isn't very strong. Otherwise, the Qi family's people would have used it earlier. Lu Qing briefly explained, but he also began to ponder. According to Old Hu, the situation of the third young Master Ji seemed quite dire. A poisonous fog mark is not a simple matter. Only evil cultivators who have cultivated the evil path successfully can create such marks. Previously, from the information scribbled by the boss of Qi family, he had learned about the Qi family creating a plague in Fengzhou. But he didn't know specifically what methods they used. Now, hearing what Old Hu said, he immediately sensed something was amiss. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shout, "Ma Gu, stop the carriage for a moment." Ma Gu stopped the carriage. "Ah Qing, what's the matter?" asked the elder doctor. "Master, if third young Master Ji is marked by the poisonous fog, the situation might not be that simple," Lu Qing said gravely. "This poisonous fog mark can only be cultivated by a real evil cultivator. Such evil cultivators often signify disaster and misfortune. Wherever they go, causing deaths is common. In severe cases, living creatures suffer immensely, and plagues are entirely normal." "You're saying it's an evil cultivator?" The elder doctor's complexion changed as well. He had seen the jade scroll engraved with information that Lu Qing had given him, which contained simple information on many ancient cultivation schools, including about evil cultivators. Therefore, he knew just how terrifying a real evil cultivator could be. "Ah Qing, are you suggesting that this evil cultivator is within the Qi family?" The elder doctor's expression was rather troubled. If that were the case, an evil cultivator hiding in a densely populated city would be a tremendous crisis for the citizens of Azure Dragon City. It shouldn't be here. If there were an evil cultivator hiding in the city, he couldn't have escaped my detection. Lu Qing shook his head. He was quite confident about this. Upon stepping into the innate realm and after the transformation of Divine Soul Talisman into a Yang Talisman, Lu Qing's divine soul power had become strong enough that all innate realm cultivators looked up to him. If there were an evil cultivator in the city, they couldn't hide so perfectly that even he couldn't detect a trace. Moreover, an evil cultivator who cultivates the poisonous fog bears the presence of misfortune. They can't stay long in crowded places. Otherwise, if their aura leaks and spreads plague, it's too easily noticed. With so many innate realm experts in the city, their identity would be easily exposed. Therefore, it was unlikely that the evil cultivator was hiding in the city. The most probable place would be somewhere outside the city, concealing and cultivating. With this in mind, Lu Qing suddenly said, "Uncle Hu, do you still remember where third young Master Ji was hiding?" Old Hu was startled. Of course I remember. However, I've already informed the Ji family master about that place. There's no time, we have to go find him right away. If we delay further, I'm afraid third young Master Ji's life will be in danger. Then let's rush over. Old Hu hurriedly replied when he heard the words. He was indeed concerned about the safety of third young Master Ji. After all, they had once stood guard at the city gate together for a long time. Although third young Master Ji had gone to experience life, the friendship between the two had been formed. Just after exiting the city gate, you can directly indicate the direction. Lu Qing immediately instructed Ma Gu to start the carriage, and after exiting the city gate, Old Hu pointed out the direction. A breeze appeared, and the carriage transformed into a stream of azure light, speeding forward at an extreme pace. Old Hu had never seen such a spectacle before. Looking at the blurry scenery flashing past the carriage window, his face turned pale. He could hardly imagine the speed of the carriage. Under the extreme speed of the magic array car, it did not take long for Lu Qing and his companions to reach the place described by Old Hu. It was a small mountain village, very desolate, filled with broken walls and ruins, looking as if it had been abandoned for a long time. When everyone got out of the carriage, Old Hu looked dazed. It must be known that the place he mentioned was dozens of miles away from Azure Dragon City. But just now, they had only just left Azure Dragon City, and it was not even a quarter of an hour before they had already arrived here. This speed was terrifying. Uncle Hu, is this the place you were talking about? Lu Qing asked. Old Hu came back to his senses and quickly nodded. That's right. This was once a village plagued by disease, where leprosy had broken out and many people died. I once came here with the city guard lord. Lu Qing nodded. He had already sensed some faint life forces in the village. Clearly, there were people hiding and living inside. Among the life forces, one was particularly vigorous, much stronger than ordinary people, obviously a martial artist. Moreover, the life force seemed familiar. It was third young Master Ji's life force. However, the condition of this life force was not good. It fluctuated strongly and weakly, and the life force was very faint, as if he had contracted a serious illness. He immediately said, I have already sensed the life force of third young Master Ji. Let's go inside. The small village was filled with broken walls and ruins, making it difficult for the carriage to navigate. Thus, Ma Gu and Wei Zian stayed behind to guard the carriage while Lu Qing and his companions entered the village. Walking through the village, Lu Qing and his companions felt people peering at them from the dilapidated houses. However, when they looked back, those gazes quickly hid away. Lu Qing did not pay attention to these and walked straight towards the direction of third young Master Ji's life force. It was a dilapidated thatched house. When Lu Qing pushed the door open, a surprised cry came out, but it was the voice of a rather young girl. Little sister, don't be afraid. We are here to save this gentleman. The light inside the thatched house was dim, but for Lu Qing, who had night vision, it posed no obstacle. He immediately saw clearly that inside the house was a teenage girl, holding a wooden stick and looking very defensive. And behind her on a wooden bed, a figure was lying down. However, although Lu Qing spoke gently, the girl clearly did not believe him. She still tightly held the wooden stick in her hand, staring unwaveringly at them. Just then, the sound of rustling footsteps came from outside. It was a group of ragged villagers, holding wooden sticks and iron forks, slowly surrounding Lu Qing and his group. Lu Qing naturally did not take these frail-bodied villagers seriously. But he made no further action and instead shouted inside, Third young Master Ji, are you awake? We are here to help you. At this moment, Old Hu also shouted, Third young Master Ji, it's Old Hu. I've brought people to rescue you. Hearing Old Hu's voice, the person lying inside finally showed some movement. A weak voice responded, Xiao Rou, don't be afraid. Step back. They are my friends and are here to help us. Hearing this voice, Xiao Rou slowly moved back to the side of the wooden bed. The group of ragged villagers outside also stopped their approach. Only then did Lu Qing and his companions manage to enter the house. And when they finally saw the state of third young Master Ji, they all involuntarily shuddered.